Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast, your favorite place for listening to talk about video games, role-playing games, movies, television, and a little bit everything else in between.
Anything that didn't really happen. That's our home here.
Yeah, anything simulated. We like to simulate things. So this is the 13th of December, 2015. Which
November.
We're recording this. November? December?
Wait, what month are we in? Oh, that's right. It is December. Oh, my gosh. It is so much closer to Christmas. Oh, my God.
We'll work this out eventually. Between the two of us, we'll figure out which month it is.
Oh, my goodness. Christmas is almost here.
But, you know, actually, some of our listeners, it could be well past Christmas. Could be 2016. Could be 3016 for them.
In which case, I hope the fidelity counts. Because, I mean, like, I remember seeing some old comics from, like way back in the day when the average monitor was like a 500 by 800 display thing. And it's like, these comics look like thumbnails now. That's the full size, and they were considered wonderfully sized back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope the fidelity thing counts up. You know, at least well, somewhat, but not too badly. So you know, in 3016, we're not like horribly antiquated.
Well, a little trade secret here. I don't record these in the highest possible sound like quality because it's just us talking. Like it's not like it's music or anything. So I'm
You don't find my voice melodic?
Of course I do. This is the 171st iteration of the show, 171.
Oof. Palindromics.
It's a palindromic number, in base 10 anyways.
Which makes it easier. I mean, palindromics in base 12 is difficult.
Yeah, slightly more difficult because there's more digits to go through. But
well, I mean, by default, you know, instead of like a 1 in 10 chance of the first and last number coinciding, it's now a 1 in 12.
Yeah.
So, math. Woo!
That's correct.
Apparently math finds a home here, too, every once in a while.
And these two voices that you've been hearing now for the last couple minutes talking about almost nothing, well, I'm Josh Levin.
I'm co-host extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby.
Okay. Yeah, so, well, here we are, doing another iteration of the show.
I'm happy to be here. I'm quite happy to be here.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Because for me, my Sunday is the beginning of my weekend.
Okay.
It's Sunday for you, but it's my Friday night.
It's Friday, so party.
I'm going to get down this Friday.
Party on the microphone. That's what we always do.
So yes, we do have some news this week, or at least fiction-related news. I mean, there's always news to be had, but I mean, this is mostly news about stuff that happens, and we ignore that. This is about fiction-based stuff. The first bit is, just a little note. If you're listening to this, like, as soon as it's released, there's, like, less than, 5 days to the Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens being released.
Star Wars. Nothing but Star Wars.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Is like, on the one hand, I think it's going to be a really good movie. Everything I've seen seems to make me want to see more of it. All the stuff, all the hype and all that just make me want to see more. The commercials, from what I've seen, because I haven't been seeing like the big, really long ones, because I don't want to be spoiled at all on any of this stuff.
Okay.
Is that this person here has a history, and he's like the guy. He looks like he's going to wind up being like the next, Jedi. And it's like, but he's not like some farm boy, for like a moisture farmer, like some bumpkin hick out of middle of nowhere, man.
Okay, well, that's been done, so good.
It's been done, and it's been done a lot. It's
been done twice now, with Anakin and Luke.
Well, just in that series alone, too, but it's not an uncommon trope in fiction. I'm from nowhere, and thus I don't know anything. Yes, you're going to have to get me up to speed, wink, wink to the audience. Whereas this guy seems like, this guy's got history. Apparently, he's had something going on with, like, stormtrooper history. Is not a stranger.
Wait, are you going to do spoilers now, or no?
Well, it's just what I've seen.
Okay, no spoilers.
Like, where he takes off like a stormtrooper. I don't know if he was a stormtrooper or he's just, like, disguising himself as one. But this guy is not a stranger to battle. This is a guy with a history and a past. And that makes him much more intriguing to me than any of the country bumpkins that have been the protagonists. which is not to say they weren't bad protagonists. It's just that it's like, okay, this guy hits the ground running. This guy's got a guy, he's on the uptake, which I think suits Episode 7, 7 a lot better because, dude, we've had 6 movies before this. If you don't know the history of the setting, what are you doing watching this? You go home, find some way to stream, download, borrow the 6 movies from friends, and watch these other 6 movies, and then you come back and watch 7. So this is a very good one to have a protagonist where you're going to hit the ground running.
Well, I sort of disagree with that because the whole, maybe it was just an illusion, but the whole thing with Star Wars was that it was like, no, we start at Episode 4, so we sort of invent this world in which you can sort of drop in at any time and be like, oh, Episode 4, yeah.
But they still, in both trilogies, went with the person who knows nothing about the greater universe.
Yeah, true.
And, okay, I guess it makes sense for the first trilogy because it's like, it's a good storytelling device to get all the audience members up to speed. And I guess it makes okay from the prequel trilogies because, it's like, okay, this happened beforehand, so, like, what did we miss before? Because, now we get up to the speed of what happened before. But in Episode 7, it's like, okay, you've seen this, and then we're going to do a bit of a time lapse, and we're going to bring that other stuff in, and it's like batter. We're going to fold it in properly to create a good storytelling cake here.
And I don't know how much of a bumpkin Luke and Anakin really were. I mean, yes, they didn't know all the details, but they were aware that there was an intergalactic...
Skywalker's good fun time was shooting womp rats out of his land speeder.
Yeah, but he knew that there was a rebellion going on and he wanted to join it.
Simply because he was so bored in the ass end of space. I'm pretty certain he would have joined something, like a farming corps elsewhere in the universe, provided it was a much more entertaining farming area.
Okay, but he also knew that his dad was a pilot, right?
Well, that's what he had been told.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert there. His dad is one of the most horrible men alive in the galaxy at the time. Although if you didn't know that, oh my goodness, buddy. Watch the first 6 movies. It's kind of a big thing.
Well, I mean...
It's a cultural touchstone.
Or just sit back and enjoy our conversation. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
They're good movies, though. You're probably not going to get... Well, you might get, like a sore bum if you're watching all 6 of them at once. But you're not going to be let down. And they're good quality movies. Even the prequel trilogies had their good moments. Jar Jar Binks aside.
All right, yeah.
But yes, And the one bit that got me for the one trailer I saw on TV was a line, and I said it to one of my coworkers, and she got goosebumps just off of it. Mm-hmm. And it's doing one of the things where someone's talking and they're showing a bunch of scenes, and it's a bit of an elderly lady's voice. So I don't know, maybe it's an older Princess Leia. I don't know, maybe it's someone else. But her bit was like, I have lived long enough to see the same eyes in different people. You have the eyes that he did once, and all that stuff. It's like, oh, dude, that is a really powerful line. I've lived long enough to see the same eyes in different people. It's like, dude, I want to hear more about this. I want to hear the wisdom this lady's dropping. I want to see this. I want to spend $10 to watch a 2D version of this movie. Yeah. What I've seen has drawn me in without spoiling it. So it is very much being played into my interests. So hooray! And they got that BB-8 R2 unit that's kind of like running on a ball. And that looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, that droid. I could watch a whole movie of just that droid driving around.
I can't wait until they're selling that as a toy where you get to like a remote control.
I think it's already available in some places. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be able to afford it, but it's like I can't wait to see that stuff popping up. For like fun trick videos on YouTube. Oh, I'll be happy watching those too.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything seems to be appealing to me. So fingers crossed this movie winds up being awesome and amazing. And please don't suck. Like, if it does wind up bombing and just being like, oh, dude, I can't believe how many mistakes you guys made. You utterly ruined things. I'm not going to hold Disney incredibly responsible because it's not like, like they've had a lot of experience making Star Wars movies before. Like, I think a lot of people were disappointed in Episode 1 because it's like, dude, George Lucas, you've made 3 of these movies before. I know it's been a little while, but you made the 3 movies. Could you just try and find the spirit of it again and pick it on up. And he did by episode 3. He really had it. The haircuts were like perfect, like crazy 70s style.
Haircuts.
The fight scenes were working and all that, and it was really all coming together. It just took him apparently 2 movies to get up to speed. Oh well. But so I think that's where the bigger disappointment came from. It's like, dude, George Lucas, you really nerfed it on this one. Like, come on, man. Whereas Disney, it's like, okay, Disney, not bad for a first time. I think you can do better. Make sure episode 8 is like 5 times as good as this one, and then we'll be okay with this. Because Disney doesn't have the experience with working with a Star Wars universe.
Not specifically Star Wars, but of course Disney has so much experience. Like the Disney company has so much experience with.
Which is why I will be disappointed, but not angry at them. It's like, Disney, you should know better. But this is a Star Wars universe. It's a very specific universe, and you kind of have to get your groove on with that. So I'm going to call this one a bit of a mulligan. Let's make sure episode 8 rocks out. So I think I'm being fairly lenient even before I've even gotten a chance to see the movie.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, though, I don't have to be lenient, and it rocks out on all objective scales.
I expect the movie to do well in terms of having some awesome scenes, some good action, some good fights, to be well-paced, for example. I don't expect the best story ever, and maybe that's not possible. Maybe the best story ever is just simply has already been told, because that was Empire.
Well, I don't know, because it looks like, now don't quote me on this, but it looks like from what I'm seeing, the Empire has fallen, all that from the episode 6 or stuff, but it looks like it left a power vacuum, and that there's a lot of fighting rival factions. There's no one unified galactic senate going on. Things haven't really improved that much, because you get rid of one big evil, and then all of a sudden you find yourself with 1,000 moderate evils trying to take that spot. I guess this is like
taking out Saddam Hussein, and now you have to fight ISIS.
Precisely. It looks like it's going to be okay, there's still a lot of conflict to be had, so you don't have to worry about and then the galaxy goes back to a peaceful democratic union, and everyone plays nice with each other. It's like no, things are actually you didn't really solve all the problems just by throwing one dude down an air shaft,
actually,
and then blowing up a Death Star.
Here's what I like as the analogy. It's after the Second World War, and now you've got the Wild Wild West. That's what it should be.
I think that's a very good way of describing what again, I haven't tried to see any spoilers, but from what I've seen, there's still a lot of conflict going on. So the Wild Wild West is a very good way of explaining out the situation people are in.
Yeah, although I mean how many times have different sci-fi franchises tried to be like, yeah, we're a Western in space. Obviously, Firefly.
Firefly sold that one. Firefly, brought that package in a nice wrapped up bow, delivered it, and they still managed to get canceled after the one season.
Yeah, Star Trek started out as that was the original pitch, was that it was going to be a Western in space. It turned out it took some other turns, but it turned into more of a, I don't know.
And then that's the thing. It's to differentiate. Star Wars is a wild, crazy. We got space magic and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Star Trek is very, very much went with science and class, which I don't think would have gone quite so well without Jean-Luc Picard at the helm. Stewart himself. I think as much as he doesn't really want to keep associating himself with the Jean-Luc Picard character, you cannot deny that his presence in the Next Generation series really amped up the amount of class and professionalism that the series had with it.
Yeah, well, I remember watching the first couple episodes of the first season of Next Generation, and they set up the way they originally set up Picard was he was supposed to be not quite as central a figure. It was supposed to be, because Riker was supposed to be our hero and the guy who slew all the women, Lady Slayer, Lady Killer.
Let's go with Lady Slayer. Lady Killer sounds like a creeper. It's they found him, with wearing the torso of the latest victim before they shot him dead. No, let's just keep it with Lady Slayer.
But yeah, Riker was really supposed to be that cowboy guy and lead the sort of expeditions. and you weren't really supposed to see Picard quite as much. But then, obviously, as they continued to write, they're like, well, this guy is pretty awesome still.
Acting skills on this
and
guy?
Yeah, he's a really good actor. So
I want him to say more. Let's see how much stuff we can get him to say. I really like the way he sounds. Yeah. And so, he kind of got himself. That said, it was much more of an ensemble cast than what you saw with just the few central one figure here, there, and the other for each department.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, when you think about, like, who is the most cultured individual you know in Star Trek? It's like Jean-Luc Picard, dude. Like, the guy oozes class. Although I have heard interesting things whereby he, for a conspiracy notion, where he's faking it.
I'd say Data is more cultured because he has more access to culture.
Data's more knowledgeable, but he doesn't influence, like everything he does with culture and class. Mm-hmm. Maybe because he can't really, order the hot Earl Grey tea. He doesn't drink it, and he's starting to discover what it's like to be a, human, I guess humanoid. But he is trying to be a human, right? But Jean-Luc Picard's like, I already know about human. Now I'm going to go for advanced human. I'm going to go for classy human. But now I say, who is the classiest person you can think of in Star Wars? Let's go original trilogy. Just keep it to the
Emperor Palpatine.
Emperor Palpatine / C-3PO.
Okay.
So you've got your effeminate, air quotes, gay robot, and the most horrible man in the universe. Yeah, it really does set a different tone for who's got how much class and where they're exercising it.
Yeah. So
I'm okay that they decided to separate things out in their own ways. But yeah, long story short, fingers crossed, less than a week, Episode 7, Force Awakens, hope it rocks out.
Cool, yeah.
The other bit of news is the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Okay.
High definition graphics and all that. Apparently, it's going to be taking too long and going to be too big for to release all at once. Because apparently you couldn't release Final Fantasy VII all at once, but they did that over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to be releasing it as an like an episode style that way too. So to be fair, the original Final Fantasy VII did come on 3 discs, and you had to switch things out, A, B, C sort of thing, right?
Right.
So it was bigger than 1 disc. It's a pretty big thing, especially back in the day. And high definition is going to bulk up the size a bit. But we do have a lot of people saying like it's a money ploy, like they're going to try and get you to pay full price for each episode.
Yeah. Maybe it is. I don't know. Like, is an episode are they going to be long episodes too?
That's also another concern people have: is how many episodes, how long of the episodes are you going to go? How long are you going to have to wait before you even leave Midgar, for example, like the first city? How long are you going to be in there before you get the next stage and you get out of there? And will it be linear? Will you actually be able to go back? Because some of the more recent ones have been fairly linear, no chance to go back on things.
Okay.
Such is life, I suppose. But I do find it interesting to see what questions are being raised from this design. Apparently, they're having to do it from the ground up, and they're going to be changing out the combat style to a live action as opposed to like a turn sequence sort of thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know really who they're making it for, because I kind of like the turn sequence stuff, and I do not play the more recent games because of their more live action thing.
Yeah.
I like to consider my tactics as I'm doing it. That's why I enjoy it as it was.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, there's a few different styles. There's the Diablo just clicky, like until they die style. Yeah. I guess there's World of Warcraft sort of spell menu style.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I remember what's his face from the Penny Arcade describing World of Warcraft when it first came out, and they had gotten a chance to be in the beta and all that fun stuff. And he says, in Diablo, where you have that one button, you just click and click and click, 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 and you might have a second button you need to shift click for the other one and all that stuff. It's like, this is World of Warcraft. I don't have one button. I have 4 rows of these important buttons. This is World of Warcraft. This is how important it is. And actually wound up, I guess, in the long term being egg on his face because they managed to consolidate it down. It's like, dude, if you can't push it in 5 buttons, then you don't have a good optimized build.
Yeah.
But he's like, yes, I've got 4 banks of these important buttons to push. And so in which case, I guess it's kind of like a Dance Dance Revolution sort of thing where you got to push it all in the right sequence with the right timing.
Yep.
Which is a good way to differentiate it from Diablo's spam clicker, break your mouse sort of style. My mouse still is not working properly since the last time I played Diablo 2. Guess I should put that on my Christmas wish list. New mouse.
You've played The Sims too, right? Do you know how The Sims...
I have a copy of The Sims for the GameCube, which I have up and running.
You know, The Sims has, like, when you click on... I know it's not combat, but I was thinking, like, this might work. You click on an enemy, and it is basically real-time, although it's fairly slow, too. But that could probably work in, like, a battle scene. If your character sort of automatically fights a little bit, but then you can have access to some special moves. They're like, you click your enemy, and that brings up a menu, and it's like, whoa, this is what you can do to this enemy. And then, like, if you, depending on your mood, or what energy, or how much mana you have, or if you have some sort of buff, it gives you different options, and it's like, oh, you know, backswing, and then, okay, click that, and how do you want to do it? And then, okay, go, and, like, do you want to extra power it? And it's like, go.
Dwarf Fortress has something similar to that in its adventure mode.
Oh, yeah?
Whereas you can now work your stuff, all your minions and all that, basically just kind of go in the general from what you tell them to. And it's a little bit more cruder in the, Dwarf Fortress mode. Because in that case, what you're doing is like, okay, I want you guys to attack here, and I really hope everyone goes and attacks properly. There has been an issue historically where you send your Marks dwarves out, and they'll go out with their crossbows, and they will try to bludgeon their opponents to death with their crossbows as a melee weapon. So, fingers crossed, you hope you get it right. You kind of got to position them somewhere where they can't actually access their enemy, but are within line of sight to fire. Weird things.
I guess Warcraft was a little bit like that, like Warcraft 3, because you had your troops would all just sort of do automatic stuff, and then you had a hero who had some limited access to spells and things, and special items.
And the various other games that emulated. Age of Wonders is one that I fell in love with back in the day that had a similar style. Here's all your generic minions, and then here's the one guy with the powers and abilities.
Right.
And maybe his second in command if you have enough points for one.
Yeah.
So, interesting style in that way. But that's the thing, though, with Final Fantasy VII. Is just like, I appreciated the turn-based combat system. So why, if you're trying to remake it, why are you changing it so much?
Well, I mean, maybe it's just that, well, if you really wanted it, you could just play the one you already have.
Well, not everyone has a copy of the original PlayStation. Or I suppose all the re-releases to the other, Android, iOS stuff they've got.
Yeah.
I think they did a few years back. One of the other things is that they are changing the name of Aerith to Aerith. Now, because it sounds more like Earth and all that stuff. It's like, it's starting to make me question, it's like, one, why are you guys trying to build this for as much money, although I understand as a corporation why you're trying to do that. And two, if it's a remake, why are you trying to change things? Like who is this really for? The people that appreciated it the first time and want to play it again? Or are you trying to get another market off the same, plot? It's like, okay, we're going to redo this and we're going to remake it and we're going to sell it to the people that have never played it before. That's why it's going to be different, but we're still using the same plot. It's like, that sounds kind of cheap.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I guess they don't have to come up with new elements, right?
Well, so that's the thing is one of the best arguments I've seen against change is that it runs the risk of changing the use of materia in the game, which was a central part of the storyline. So if you change the combat system, you change potentially the importance of the materia, as well as the how it'll wind up playing through the story. So it'll wind up becoming something you see in the combat and be something else entirely in the story. And I figure, okay, that's actually a really well logicked argument without actually seeing the first episode of it out yet. So it's like, oh, congratulations, your logic has won me over. I am now trepidatious.
Just thinking about The Sims and different ways of managing combat, I almost want to create a game that's sort of like The Sims, but it's it's called something like Base Camp or Army Camp, and it's just you just manage the camp, Like it's maybe a Napoleonic era, something like that. And so you have like the cooks and the I don't know, musicians, I guess, and basically all the people doing logistics in the camp. And then you just click a button and you have all your soldiers, so you have to manage them and keep them full of food and stuff. Mm-hmm. And at some point you like click a button and you send, okay, I'll send those guys off to war. They go off screen, they do like a battle, you know, with guns and everything, and like assuming artillery and stuff, you know, playing all those other games that most other games actually cover. And then they sort of come back with like they're wounded, so you have like a little hospital, and it's like
MASH unit set up.
And this is the game. It's like The Sims but for a camp.
Well, that's one of the things they're going to wind up doing with Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah.
Is you'll be able to build an army, send it off screen to go like destroy like the goblin capital, and come back with either corpses because you all died, or the loot. It's like, congratulations, you ransacked the city.
Yeah, I'd like to see something like that.
Which I think is going to be an amazing addition into the game. To be fair, to get that up, you had to have like a world that was still progressing after the creation of the map, which until the most recent release at the top of this month wasn't something that was happening, at least not properly. Like you start off the world and then the rest of the world just becomes a static playground with like a finite number of notable people and monsters, and then you'd wind up whittling them down because they came on the map and you killed them or they died of old age. Such is life. But now you can actually go out and trash the city, and that'll change things out, and you'll get repercussion battles going in, and the population will manage to grow back up. So you won't just getting these random goblins that come out from nowhere. It's like, this is the goblin that destroyed the the elven settlements 500 years ago because their goblins are immortal.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, these are goblins that mean something. It's like, these are the goblins that are born unto the goblins, not just randomly generated to fight you goblins. Which I guess doesn't change the gameplay at all, but it does feel nice to kill the legacy goblins. It's like, take that. I killed your father, and I'll kill you in the same trap. Look, his blood's still on there. There you go. Now you're cut into 40 pieces too. Just like your old man. Ha ha ha. But yeah, those are the two big story bits for fiction-related news this week.
Yep, cool.
In more personal stuff for fiction, what did you do this week, Josh?
Oh yeah, well, I discovered a new game on the Android. I don't know if it's for iOS and Android.
You discovered it on Android.
Yeah, I discovered it on my Android device. It's called, I don't know, it's Paradise Bay. Was what it's called. It's another one of these ones by the people who brought you Candy Crush. I feel like I'm doing an ad.
So Paradise Bay by, was it like the King whatnot and stuff?
Yeah.
Although, didn't they get bought out by Activision Blizzard recently?
Maybe, yeah. I think
if they're not bought out, I think the deal's in the works right now. So you're technically shilling for Blizzard. So
basically, it's another one of these. It's like the waiting game, because you click on a thing and it's like, oh, okay, now we're crafting a net for you. Come back in 30 minutes and you can go catch a fish. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, they have like a little in-game currency, like gems and stuff that I could spend and buy.
And you run out of those gems and it becomes microtransactions.
Yeah, once you use them all up, you have to.
Now, you got to be careful with those games, because apparently the guys who did the Dungeon Keeper one, a very famous series, Dungeon Keeper, you try and run a dungeon, they tried to do one of those for like the portable games with mini transactions, and they were purposefully delaying things where it takes so long to get anything done. Unless you were paying the money for it, they wound up getting sued, and they lost.
But yeah, I guess, I mean, the thing is, I haven't actually, it's free for me.
Yeah, it's a freemium.
So I guess I can't really complain too much, because, I mean, if I was, if I paid for a game, then I would be like, oh, okay, now I gotta wait. But, I think it's
What's the thing? I mean, I play Marvel Avengers Alliance, and it's basically, okay, go in here, do 6 battles, do this and that sort of thing, and then I guess come back later on in the day if you want things happening.
Yeah.
You're training up this new guy. Well, this is going to take, like 30 minutes now, but this more advanced guy is going to take you 36 hours before they get done with their training.
Yeah. But I guess...
And only one training base is a real big bottleneck at some points in the game there.
Yeah. In some ways, like, time is a currency, because I've always enjoyed this about Minecraft, too, is that some blocks take a lot of time to mine, and it's not about microtransactions. It's like you got to wait for your wheat to grow, or you got to wait for I don't know.
That is one of the things I think that got me the most laughs from watching the Yogscast guys, was them discussing about how annoying it was to have such a long mining time for obsidian.
Yeah.
And they're talking about notches. This shall be my jest. I shall make it a very nice block, and it shall be very important, but it will take you forever to mine each block out. There are mods that, one, just bypass it, and other ways that change things around, like the Thaumcraft stuff I'm working with. I have a wand, or so I get. Well, actually, it's just a little cap I can put on a wand or a staff that will allow me to trade out any one of that kind, any block I touch with a preset block I've determined. So, like, I'll be up in the end, and I'm getting rid of those towers, those obsidian towers.
Yeah.
And I'm just clicking on it, and so I'm turning it into endstone, which is really easy and quick to get rid of for me. And I'm just doing that layer after layer instead of having to slowly get each individual piece.
Yeah.
It's okay. And it makes such a satisfying popping sound as they change from one to the other. There's all of a sudden, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, now I don't have any endstone on me, but I do have a nice half stack of obsidian sitting here. Ooh. And then I mine it out because I want everything. Endstone and otherwise. It's all mine.
Yeah. So Paradise Bay, like I'll describe it a little bit. You're on an island, or you're looking down at an island. It's like a tropical island in, Caribbean or whatever. And there's a few characters on the island. Like there's an islander lady who like tells you what to do, and your role is
tell me what to do.
Yeah, your role on the island is Trade Master. That's what they call you.
Oh, and that's a pretty good title. I won't lie.
Yeah, so they have a sort of a building in the middle of the island that's sort of yours, or a trading post, and you go into the building, like you click on it, or you finger on it. What's the word for
cursor over?
Well, because it's on a mobile device, so it's a touchpad.
No, it's a tap.
You tap it. Yeah, you tap.
Oh.
No?
Well, that's the thing is, I'm just wondering, because, tap might be legally trademarked by Richard Garfield and Wizards of the Coast.
I think that'd be a different context. So
it might be okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to get sued by WotC. Okay.
Well, we're not, because we just talk about it. But yeah, I don't know about if a video game company made it. I think it's distinct from the card version.
Sue them, not us. Thank you, Mr. Garfield.
You tap on that building, you go inside the building, and you can arrange different trades, and you can tell different buildings. Like there's a little workshop that makes string and rope, and there's another workshop that makes like barrels, another one that makes metal stuff like metal needles, metal nails, and some of this stuff. So
you don't find it a little sad that you're in this tropical paradise and what they have you do is commerce?
Well, it's okay, yeah. And you can also you can scroll around the island, and it's like a map, so you can find different little secrets hidden on it, so you can go treasure hunting and stuff. So there is that.
But it's not like such a thing where if you produce so many units of, say, string, you wind up degrading the environment around you because you're taking too many resources?
I suppose you kind of do, because you buy you can buy certain trees. Like you buy a coconut tree and plant it. With like the gold that you get for other transactions.
So apparently gold is still the standard for trade.
There's gold and there's gems, and I think there's there's other stuff like pearls and
gold-studded gems.
Yeah. When you buy a coconut tree, it only lasts for, it makes 3 coconuts at a time, and you harvest them. And then it makes, you have to wait for, I don't know how long, 20, 30 minutes for some to grow. Mm-hmm. But eventually the coconut tree dies. So if you don't...
So you're over-harvesting this poor coconut tree.
Well, yeah, and then you have to either buy another coconut tree, or you can...
plant a coconut?
Get an axe and chop down the dead tree. Or you can just leave the trees and just have a whole bunch of dead coconut trees on your island. So it can get kind of messy and gross a little bit if you're not careful.
I don't know, man. It seems to me like there should be a thing on this game whereby you've got your environmental levels, and thus if you wind up doing too much of this crud, of course you're killing off your trees. You're over harvesting them, and you're not paying attention to their natural health.
I suppose, yeah. It's funny because islands,
are very fragile ecosystems because of their inherently limited scope.
That's true, yeah.
It's like, oh no, you've introduced rats to the island with your horribly, uncouth trading. And now, all the animals are dying, especially the birds, because all their eggs are getting eaten. Way to go, Trade Master.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And the other thing is, some of the treasures that you find around the island are here's a hermit crab, and here's a clam that's buried itself in the sand, and here's some starfish and stuff, and here's some jellyfish. But basically the objective of what you're supposed to do as a player is you find them and you tap them, and then they disappear. They turn into whatever. So it's basically, I don't know if you're eating them.
Selling them or eating them?
Well, they turn into experience points.
Oh,
so
okay.
I guess you're killing them. I'm not
Maybe,
sure.
Well, I guess in the D&D sense you're killing them. Maybe it's just and then I saw that and I had a good time that day, and thus I'm a little bit wiser and happier.
But then they sort of, after you click on them, they disappear, because obviously then you wouldn't.
The moment's over, dude. It's just
don't run away.
Don't keep going back to that one clam. Let the clam be.
You click on the clam and he shuts down and dives into the sand or whatever.
Okay.
I guess.
And so what's the ultimate purpose of this game? Is you're making wires and ropes and...
I haven't figured out what the ultimate purpose is. I guess it's amass as much gold as you can, because every time you trade some ropes for something else, or sell something to each of the little characters on the island will say, hey, Trade Master, I need some coffee, or I need some of this or that. And you're like, okay, I can tell the coffee shop to make some coffee out of these coffee beans that we planted, and then go through that chain of construction. It's like, okay, made some coffee. Here you go, have some coffee. Thank you. Here's some money and some experience points.
Where are they getting this money from?
Yeah, I don't know.
Crazy.
I think it just comes out of nowhere. And they have they have relationship bars with you, which is like hearts. So every time you do a trade with them, they like you a little better. Which, now that I think about it, that's a little weird too, because... Yeah,
I like him. He sells me many things.
Is that how your relationship with your customers at the fast food restaurant are?
If I do it very well, yes.
Yeah.
By and large, most people just don't care. So I have more of a relationship with the goods you sell me than with you.
But it's not about you've done 50 trades with me. Now you're my best friend.
No, I can't say that almost any of my customers would be in the friend category. Co-workers, however, the more time you spend working with the co-workers, the more they wind up either becoming the person you absolutely hate or a great friend.
Right.
Fortunately for me, it's always gone towards the good friend stuff. Shoot the breeze, have a chat, everyone has a good laugh. I say what's been going on with my family.
Yeah. And I think the game, like all these games, there's a multiplayer version of it. There's some social aspects, and you can Candy Crush has you can send your friends lives and stuff. So
is it just sending lives, or is there a PvP thing? Are you raiding other people's islands?
I haven't got to a raiding stage yet. I don't think there is. A Clash of Clans.
Not everything needs a PvP system.
Yeah, I don't think there is, but there are pirates in the game, and there are more islands that you can get to, which I'm only on the first island. So
you're amassing your resource exploiting trading empire. And
sort of as you go, you unlock more. If you unlock a new building, it's now traders from other places come in, and there's a world map building that I'm trying to unlock. So hopefully that gets me to the other islands.
Well, I want to see where this game goes, because right now it seems reckless and pointless. I'm afraid to say, except for the needles, they're very pointed. But that's the thing.
Yeah.
In Minecraft, you need the resources. To get the resources, you kind of have to sacrifice. And then there's a giant pit here, so my wonderful nature paradise no longer looks so great. And it's and then there's creatures coming at night, so I got to build walls, and then you got to start sacrificing the natural beauty of the landscape for your safety and your needs.
Yes, that is true with Minecraft. Minecraft is not completely, consequence appropriate. A lot of times you can sort of get away with having a massive chicken farm and no worries about leaching nitrogen into the sea and causing dead zones in the whole ocean.
There might be a mod for that, though.
Yeah. I don't know.
What's the thing? I mean, if the Thaumcraft mod has like stuff for taint, you could certainly like a copy like a system like that for pollution. The more animals you have in a unit area, the more pollution they generate, and thus you wind up getting like negative status effects, like, oh god, I'm in the pig pen, I'm feeling so sick. Why did I have so many pigs so close together?
Yeah, they could all get swine flu.
I think that's definitely a thing you could wind up putting into the game. Just to, I'm not usually one for making a game harder for the sake of making it harder, but just to avoid having those horrible things where you got all these chickens floating on water, and thus the eggs they lay float down to the bottom, and you hopper them away.
Yeah,
that's like, as the son of a chicken farmer, like, dude, that's going way too far. My dad had a few chickens per cage sort of thing, where you had to worry about like them pecking each other's eyes out, because chickens are horrible creatures. Ooh, horrible, horrible creatures. But it's like, dude, even that's too much for them. Man. Don't even do that.
Yeah, that reminds me. Like, I don't know if you've been around Victoria a little bit, but you hear about like, oh, chicken farms. They have thousands, tens of thousands of chickens, and that sounds like a lot. But I was just riding by like my bike by at like one of these ponds, and there was I don't know, probably thousands of ducks and a mixture of ducks and Canadian geese too. Yeah. On there, and it's just like, I don't know. Yeah.
What's the thing? Huge, I mean, if you've got 10,000 egg-laying hens with the proper sized cage, you can put 5 per cage without having to worry about them like eating each other alive. Yeah. So that's only 2,000 cages, and then if you put it into 4 rows, that's 500 per cages per row. So it's actually not that big.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, just 4 rows is actually considered like very oddly linear. You could wind up doing that in 2 sets of those 4 rows, and then wind up only being 250 cages long, which is like a bit of a long barn, but not that bad.
Yeah.
It would be incredibly noisy to be in, though. I have been to some of the bigger ones, and sometimes it was hard to see what was going on through the flies in the summertime. Oh my god, the flies get there.
Okay.
Oh, like you think Beijing is bad with its pollution? There are some of those chicken places where you need a mask just to make sure you're not breathing in flies. Yeah. Oh god, when the summer heat hits during the heat waves, I mean, you can keep them chickens cold, but there's no way you are hiding that chicken manure stench from the flies, and you will just like suck them in like some sort of crazy fly vortex.
Is that how that works? They come from other areas, or is there somewhere in there that they have?
Well, both. They will come in from the smell, because in the hotter weather, the smell will be able to generate more of itself, and thus will have a wider radius around, which draws in the flies, which utilize the area for keeping their eggs warm, and thus you wind up having multiple generations of flies in the same area as other flies. The new fly blood sort of thing is brought in, and it just becomes so bad. Like, okay, when you're thinking about like the 12 tasks of Hercules, and you're looking, it's like, oh, he has to do this and that, and then there's that cleaning the stables, and you're like, well, geez, that's a pretty lame, task, and all he wound up doing was like shunting some water in there. No. Picture, just like higher than your head, mounds of dung, with flies so thick you can barely even see how large these mounds are because they're obscuring your vision so much. Then you realize just how bad of a chore cleaning out stables are, because I haven't even mentioned the stench. Silver lining, after about 6 weeks of working at such a place, the stench just leaves. You can't even smell it anymore.
Yeah, and you get paid.
Well, hopefully you're getting paid. I mean, there's always the slave labor concept.
Okay.
Like, Hercules did not get any money for cleaning them stables.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Although he did get some form of divinity, so maybe it's a deferred payment. Well, thought for another. He did wind up horribly polluting the local area by, shunting a river to clean out the stables in a day. And thus he put a lot of manure somewhere downstream. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a nice digression there.
Yes.
What else? I guess we're still on me, right?
Yeah. Well, unless you're done.
I just wanted to mention I did another 2 comedy shows last week.
Congratulations.
And yeah, because on Monday night I got they gave me the set of the night, awards. So what that means is I got to perform again for free on Thursday. But it was really fun, and yeah, I did. So I performed stand-up comedy. And I guess that's a kind of simulation, I like to think.
Well, my version of comedy is that it is a stylized form of reality.
Yeah. But
then again, I mean, so you could qualify that whole thing, and then it's like a low fiction form, as opposed to, well, some of them is high fiction. Some of them people go absolutely crazy with their comedy stuff.
Yeah.
But no, it's just like general comedy is considered like a low fiction. It's like, even if that wasn't true, it's something that could potentially have been true. So I appreciate your hilarious anecdote. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. So basically, it's kind of like telling funny stories.
Yeah.
And of course, I listen to a lot of other stories, so that counts too. So yeah, I mean, hey, if our listeners happen to be in Victoria, there's always it's always a place that you can go on Monday or Thursday to the Ramada Lounge, the Ratfish is what it's called.
Yeah, at the Ramada.
At the Ramada in Victoria.
And that's just the one off the gorge, right?
Yeah, it's on Gorge Road. Yeah.
There you go. I remember that place because I locked my keys in the car there once with the engine running.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was a pretty low moment for me, but at least I remember where the Ramada is ever since then.
Oh yeah, okay.
It only cost me $50 to remember.
And one more thing can I mention?
Oh, sure thing.
I watched The Big Bang Theory. I just wanted to.
Yes. Progress report.
The Big Bang Theory, the nerd soap opera, I guess is what you call it, because
or nerd face, depending on your opinion of the thing.
Yeah, I suppose. Sheldon and Amy got back together again. It looks like for good, and they actually kissed. And it wasn't. At least I don't think it wasn't a dream.
Imaginary thing.
It really happened. Unless next week we find out that it was really last week's episode was really.
So yeah, what happens if they end off the season with like a Who Shot JR sort of thing, where it turns out the entire season's just being like the dream of someone in like a coma?
Yeah, I don't think people do that too often in like TV anymore.
Are you kidding? After the amount of back flack that Dallas got for Who Shot JR with the whole season being like it never happened, I don't think anyone's got the cojones to try pulling off that sort of crud. That's cool.
And also, it's like hard to believe. Like dreams can be very vivid, but you can't uphold an entire like season worth of television in a dream.
The whole bit with Roseanne, I guess spoiler alert. It's been over for a while. Go watch it.
Yeah.
Where it revealed that everything was a stylized version of her life. She had gone down to the basement and she's just been writing. The heart attack that Dan suffered and recovered from, no, it actually took his life. And, these people are actually, in a different relationship here because she thinks they'd work out better that way as opposed to these two people being, with the other way.
I see.
And so the whole thing winds up being, it never really happened, but I guess it kind of did because she's basing it off her own experiences as she's writing in the basement just to help relax from being, like an at-home mom.
Okay. I remember...
that one got some negative, flack on that one too, but I found it to be a very nice way of ending it.
Well, it's probably fine. I probably wouldn't have gone that way myself.
It does explain how the final season got a little weird. Just like Dan died, her husband and all that, and thus, she wanted to have some sort of release from the pain, and that's why, she wins the lottery there. Now she's rich. What would she do if she was rich? And that was just like an escapist thing for her so that she didn't have to realize the pain of the loss of her husband.
Okay.
It's like, okay, I buy that. I can understand. It makes sense now, this last season, and things go better on, and the wishes you hope for your family. And that's really what it was always about, was family.
But I will say about Sheldon and Amy is I still didn't want them to get back together again.
You want Amy all to yourself?
Actually, now that I think about it, yeah.
You're just out there looking for your Amy in life. Trying not to be a Sheldon.
I guess, I don't know how to put that, but I suppose Sheldon needs somebody, right?
Wow, I don't know, it sounds like a matchmaker line to me. Nobody needs somebody, but you can do better with someone. I don't need my wife in my life, but my life is so much better because she's there with me.
Yeah, good point. And yeah, so Amy was like on a date with this other, like a lesser scientist, like another guy.
Although, from what I've seen, for Sheldon's point of view, every scientist is a lesser scientist.
True enough, but he is also in something like physics, and so he was like a big fan of Sheldon's. So like anytime he got together with Amy, he's like, "Oh, can you help me meet Sheldon?" And then she didn't like that because But so at the end of the episode, like Sheldon bursts in on the two of them who are having a date, and they're like about to do something, like adult-y,
smooching.
Yeah, and then but the guy is totally like the way he lets it. He's just, oh yeah, it's cool. He's basically like, because he likes Sheldon, so he's just. He says, "Yep, I'm getting it out of the way. I'm so happy." So I don't know. I liked him. I don't remember the name of the actor now, but
you couldn't have liked him that much then.
I guess not. Yeah, I didn't look him up, but maybe we'll see more of him in the show. I don't know.
He'll just be like the one real loser who keeps giving it up.
Maybe. I mean, they have like that whole show is full of losers. So I mean,
harsh, dude. It's harsh.
No, that's what it's about. It's about. I mean, and not all the way losers, because I mean he has a job and just the same as the other guys.
He's quite successful in his field.
Yeah, he's a scientist and he does
financially well off.
Well, I don't know if I'd say like well off, but he's surviving.
He doesn't have a 10-room mansion, but I mean, dude has a very nice apartment with a like a good person, and he doesn't seem to be able to be like, oh, I'd like to be able to go see my mom, but I just can't afford it, sort of thing. His mom lives over in Texas.
Yeah, Sheldon's mom.
When need be, you can just like hop the train and go see her, sort of thing. So I'd say it's comfortably, well off for finances. Spontaneous, little trips across the country. Better than me.
Yeah, they're well enough off. Yeah.
There's a pretty big apartment too, as things go.
Yeah, but it's similar to the Friends effect. It's like, they just have this apartment because it's for TV and they need space to.
Yeah, okay. Well, Friends is pretty unrealistic, but I don't think they have like a prime location anywhere for them. What city is the Big Bang Theory happening in?
California. Is it Pasadena, California?
I think it is Pasadena, which is not exactly as high demand price-wise as, say, New York is.
That's true, yeah. So, you can get slightly better there.
You should be able to. Keep fighting until you get something better there. That's my motto.
All right. Yeah, so that's what I want.
So how about this? Instead of saying that you didn't hope for them to get together again, hope instead that Sheldon rises up until you're okay with him dating Amy.
Okay. Well,
until he becomes a good enough boyfriend that you're okay with the relationship and you're not like, oh, I hope she gets with someone better.
Maybe, but here's the thing, like, I've grown to like Sheldon the way he is. Maybe this is why, because I don't like change. because I don't think Sheldon likes change, and sort of this character of Sheldon is, he's basically single. He annoys the people around him, but they tolerate him, and he sort of gets by, and he lives his life. But now that you have, like, sort of things are always, like, when you start, like, they're probably going to get married at this point, because they just got back together. He had a ring for her, and then he changed his mind back and forth, but now it looks like he wants to be with her, so he's going to propose. They're going to get married. So
you ain't going to be doing any better, Sheldon. You may as well propose. Come on, buddy.
Well, yeah, and then so things are just going to keep on changing.
If you like it, you better put a ring on it.
That's life, right? But sort of what I like about Sheldon is that he is this very stable, well, he's not stable, but he is...
Static?
Yeah, static character, that's the word.
What's the thing? Couldn't you just have Sheldon with a bit of the edges, rubbed off a little and make it smooth here and there so that he's not so, there's this relationship he's going to have is never going to work with her. It's like, okay, he's still the same Sheldon as he is, but he's just not as antagonistic, and thus I can see them having a long-term relationship.
I guess. I mean, I don't know how long the show is going to keep on going, so maybe...
14 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like, sometimes shows become something very different than they were when they started.
Oh, yes, the South Park that began is not the South Park of today.
Yeah, but even in South Park, it's not like people get married or have families or, like, switch stuff like that. But
it's
with,
not like Mr. Garrison becomes a lady, has a relationship with a guy, and then progresses around and all that sort of thing. No, that doesn't happen at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. But he's a secondary character.
Well, I mean, you're not going to have the kids get married.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But actually, how long has South Park been on the air? One of them could have been married by now.
I think it's on, 16th season?
Yeah, they should be in their 20s. They're 30s, some of them.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad Cartman ain't growing up. The last thing we need is another Donald Trump out there.
Uh-huh.
But, okay, it's just an interesting perspective then. So, because he's the primary character, Sheldon can't change too much. He has to remain one of the static ones.
I suppose shows have changed. And basically it goes from a show about two single guys who are kind of roommates to two married guys or two families, which is, I mean, there are other sitcoms about married people or like two married couples that are friends. What was that one? Was King of Queens like that? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
Maybe.
Yeah. One of those. I mean, there's a couple of shows like that where it's about two couples who are friends, and they.
I remember one where it was like the brother-in-law, and his wife were staying because financial things like, oh no, we lost our house, and then it's like, oh, and then we just wound up staying because we get a lot more free money this way for both families if we're all living under the same roof.
Yeah, and then that's a show. Yeah, and the Flintstones is what I was thinking of. Is like two families who are friends, and then they do
next
stuff
door
together.
To each other, yeah,
like neighbors.
I don't even know why they really had a wall up between their two yards.
Yeah,
they seem like they should have been good enough friends. They could have chopped down the wall between them and just had a really good open field for the kids.
Nice giant big yard.
Well, I mean, like what, are the Rubbles afraid? Like Dino is going to wind up, like crapping in their yard or something. He's able to leap through a window, sort of thing, to go in and pounce on Fred. That wall is not doing anything against them. And they could have a really big area for the kids as the kids grow up.
One thing
which
the
apparently
wall,
they didn't really do until they skipped ahead to like their teens, right?
The wall might have already been there when they moved in. So
they can't fix it? They can't chop that wall
down. But the other thing is,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall.
Haven't you heard the phrase "good fences make good neighbors"? Maybe that's why they're such good neighbors. Maybe that's the wall is the only thing.
Spoiler alert! I'm not sure how much of the Flintstones you've seen. Fred was actually not that good a neighbor.
Yeah.
Fred was kind of an ass.
Yeah. So if they didn't have that wall, he might garbage. I don't know. You wouldn't know who's had to mow it and everything.
No, it's not too hard just to say, okay, I mowed up to here, you mow the rest. I'm like, dude, it's like, oh no, I got to mow an extra 10. Oh, actually, they might have had an episode on something stupid like that. I got to mow an extra 5 feet compared to that. I'm so angry now. How dare you, Barney?
Yeah.
In which case, then Wilma and Betty could have just shown how stupid they were at the end. There's your 22-minute episode.
Yeah, there's another episode.
Yeah. One more episode in the can. There you go.
But then they'd have to read all the background cells that they have with all the fence on it. They'd have to redo and take it out.
And from what I recall, it really wasn't that much. They just wound up using it for a spot for them to lean over as they chat to each other. You could have put a barbecue in between there. You could have just had them, leaning up against the barbecue, just chatting.
Yeah, just switch it.
Cook some more Bronto burgers going on there.
Right.
I don't know. That's just me and my reasonable thinking. Making sure it's a good play area for kids. I'm crazy that way.
Well, I think that covers all the simulations that I indulged in. What did you do?
Big thing was doing a lot more concept and design work for my ultimate, safe haven design / wrapping things up in Minecraft.
Okay, yeah.
But I think I've pretty much got things settled down for how I'm going to work out all the Thaumcraft stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting note, a lot of electronic stuff I studied in high school came into play. Like, okay, if I have a 3x3 bank for the Essentia to flow through...
Essentia?
Essentia.
Essentia?
I can break down...
That's electricity?
It's a mystical thing.
Okay.
It has 48 different flavors, but I can break any object down to its essential mystic component and then just shunt it through tubes and hold it in jars. And so I'm designing an area to reduce it down to more primal components in case I don't need these big fancy things. So I'm like, okay, I got a 3x3 grid here, and thus to make certain I don't have any flowback problems, I will want to set up these lines in parallel sequence, as opposed to, in other designs. And I tested that one out in the creative mode. It's like, yeah, just having them as like a grid square where they can flow either which way was causing some rather bad backups, and then everything stalled and nothing was happening. So it's like, so I had to, dig underneath and fix things up. Okay, yeah, make it work itself into parallel. Everything works smoothly. Bada bing, bada boom, we're out of here.
Okay.
So it's just nice to see that those old high school lessons for how electronics and electrical flow actually came in useful. That chapter in physics
for
wasn't
playing
a waste.
a video game.
That, and I was trying to figure out some patterns. I was like, actually, if I consider it to be an electrical flow issue, it's like, okay, that solved the issue there. There we go. Instead of having like one big battery of energy source, where I store everything, no, I convert it into two smaller ones. That way I can have a flow going one way and another and making sure things go in this pattern and that. It's like, okay, that works out easy. Doing doodles and all that my daughter was quite impressed with.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, I want to have little farms here, so if I get 4 wings on a farm so that everything collects up into one central column, and I can work it like that. And she's like, ooh, Daddy's making patterns. I'm like, I guess I am. I want to figure out, what's the best design and layout and how it would look aesthetically. I'm still not 100% married to any one concept over the other, but at least now I have it settled down for some math worked out on that. So it's like, hooray. Although I have been looking around, and it's like, okay, it turns out I'm going to want to get this research, but I don't have this research in the game. I'm going to need to go to the outer lands. So it's like, I still have exploration to do, which potentially will have monsters in there, which is not something I can do in my current game, because those of you who've been following realized I've slightly broken it and monsters won't naturally spawn anymore.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
That's kind of why I'm trying to wrap up this current map of mine. Because I've tried out a new map. It's like, okay, monsters spawn at night. And again, it's just something I did in the previous one that's not working right. I deleted a mod that regulated monster spawning. So now it's like, okay. The two things I'm going to have to wind up doing is like going into these outer lands, this other dimension of crazy, horrible things. Mine it for all its resources, of course, and figure out like stuff in there that I can, now I've reached an epiphany, so I can turn my alchemical furnaces into a master, like an advanced one. So instead of just like a little 1x1 block I place down, it'll wind up being like a 2x3, like a big thing, which actually won't utilize the same resources. Like I won't have to constantly supply it with sticks or wood or stuff like that to break things down into the essentia. I'll just need like energy from a node, which I can make and muck around with. So it's like, okay, so that clears up some pathways and some issues I was figuring. I was like, I'm going to need this many golems. I'm going to have to connect up to this to get this work here. And like, how do I connect this up to that? I was like, no. Okay, you build this, you dump things in at the top, it pops out the side. Done. So it's like, hooray. And there's also a good reason for me to go adventuring. Yeah. But it looks like I'm also going to have to be doing trades. If I want the essentia that I'm going to need for some of this stuff, it's in quite rarity if you can't get it from a monster. So I'm going to have to start trading for mana beans and then starting up a mana bean farm, which is not as actually difficult as it might seem. Okay. I've got everything set up. All I need to do is make a small little underground complex to grow my beans in peace.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, but then I'm going to have to get the beans, and then I'm going to have to do some cross-pollination stuff to make sure I get everything I want. So I have a good reservoir banked up for when I set up all the stuff. So it's like, okay, so now I know what to do. I've got a plan, not just for how things are laid out, but what I'm actually going to do in the game. So I'm not just sitting here doodling my days away. I've actually got a plan for getting down, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to fight these monsters here, and then I'm going to learn things. And then, of course, I'm going to mine it all for resources as much as I can. Hooray. So I'm quite happy on that one. And I suppose I might not get quite started on that tonight. But yeah, okay, once I got that set up with my daughter, it's like, okay, now I'll do trading with the villagers here to get the beans I need. I need magic beans, or, okay, I got to set things up so I'll need to find some Eyes of Ender to make things work, to get my portal out to the outer lands.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, so I got to get this going, otherwise, it's just like set up and design more. So it's like, it's not like I've done a heck of a lot, but I have done my research, which for those of you who have played in a lot of role-playing games, research to know what you're getting into is a very good way to avoid dying painfully and unaware. Like, what just killed me? Oh, I needed to have this on instead. Okay, now I'm not dying. Other than that, at the local library we got, for my daughter, it was the best of Batman. It's the Batman animated adventure series from back in the 90s and all that. And it's pretty darn good. The downside is because it is something from the library for like kids sort of thing. It's actually got some scratches on it. So like I was going to show one, and it wound up like pausing, and then halfway through it just goes to the credits because it skips.
Huh.
So I was like, But I did get to watch the episode Mad Love with my wife. For those of you who don't know, that is the backstory for Harley Quinn, how she met the Joker, fell for him, and went from Dr. Harleen Quinzel to his sidekick Harlequin.
Okay, the origin story of Harley Quinn.
Yeah, the origin story as well as, and I think about like the relationship dynamic she has, which very much shows it to be an abusive relationship.
Okay, yes. Like the Joker.
The Joker is using her for like a get out of Arkham for free, as well as like a scapegoat. Like things go bad, quick Harley, take care of things while I run away. Uh-huh. And he's very much using her, and despite the fact she's got a degree, she's not seeing it. She's constantly falling for it, and it's one hand that makes it really disturbing, and it really sets Harley up as being like less villain and more sympathetic character. Mm-hmm. Which I suppose is good, because she's a very well-loved character. I suppose out of Batman's villains, she is perhaps one of the most highly regarded sort of thing. Like more people are willing to say, say, I like Harley Quinn, she's an awesome character, more than they'll say, like almost any other villain, in his roster. Okay. So I guess that's how come she's turned into almost like an anti-hero in the current New 52 universe. Right. But it's a good story, a good back thing, and it does have Batman laughing, which is the only time in the series Batman laughs. And when the Joker laughs, it's the laughter of a madman, a laughter of someone who's truly, like lost it all and, seen the black void of reality. And it's like, this is pretty creepy. And plus, Mark Hamill's a good, voice actor. So when he laughs, a crazy laugh, it's a scary laugh. But when Batman laughs, it's the mocking laughter of the 1%, you silly little fool. Okay. It is such a it makes Harley Quinn Harley Quinn loves the Joker, so she's okay with his laughter, but Batman's laughter scares her. Yeah. So there's that thing in there too. So it's the only time Batman laughs. It's on that episode sort of thing. Hooray. I watched it with my wife because my daughter apparently, this is too boring, it's taking too long. Right. She's eating her share of pizza on Pizza Friday, off she goes. My wife loved it. My wife loved the episode, and it's like, yay, my wife loves something that I've always loved, and we got the chance to see it together. Hooray. Cool. Yeah. So it has everything that you need in a very powerful episode. It's got like disturbing dynamics, which is it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe like she puts up with the Joker and all that, and I can't believe he slapped her on that whole thing. That's abusive. It's an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. And then it's got the funny jokes like, come on, don't you want to rev up your Harley? She's trying to seduce the Joker, and and twists and plot turns, and revelations and all that stuff. And some pretty good jokes in there, too. I think it might be considered, if it's not considered by everyone, for me, I consider it to be perhaps one of the best episodes of the animated series run. And of all of the Dini-verse, maybe one of the most entertaining, and just really engrossing episodes he's ever done. So, hooray. Okay, well, cool. And I got to share that with my wife, so I'm quite happy. Yeah. Other than that, work. Being a dad. Right. So that was my week, in the long and the short of it. Okay, cool. I think we should go on to the main topic is going to wind up being, I guess, kind of a continuation or maybe even a counterpoint to last week's.
We talked about the bad guys dying.
Yeah.
The deaths of villains.
Which for Disney involves, like the floor waxer doing most of the work for the heroes.
But yeah, might as well like follow it up with some heroic deaths and just see what we can come up with this week.
Because I mean, that is perhaps one of the weakest points in Dungeons and Dragons is like a noble sacrifice. Because
you can't do it, or
well, you can do it, but most of the time when a hero dies, it's because they reduce down to 0 hit points in a fight against like monsters.
Okay.
And thus their death is like oh yes, sure, you died in pursuit of, say, you're freeing prisoners from the illithid, sanitarium where they're trying to drive people insane. They're trying to study it, and they've taken some high-profile NPCs, and oh no, you're trying to bust them out, and you die in the process. But it's like, what did your death really mean? Because you were fighting like Mook, squad number 4.
Well, isn't that a little bit more realistic though? And also, like in
sadly,
D&D,
yeah, it is a little bit more realistic.
You need that sense of danger at all times. It sort of has to be there that, oh yeah, your character could die any time, and that makes it more meaningful during the fights, because it's like, yeah, this could be...
Don't get into the fight unless you're going to make certain you're either going to win or it's meaning something when you die.
I know in D&D sometimes there are really stupid deaths. Sometimes even the
player-induced
DM,
or otherwise.
Sometimes even the DM just is like, doesn't, leaves out crucial details, and the player is like, oh, I run into that room. And the DM's like, well, you didn't check for so-and-so, and then, rocks fall on you, and that's the end of that character.
You trip the tripwire, and then the mace that was attached to the mechanism swings in and crashes you in the face. Ooh, that puts you down at -2. You're dying, buddy.
And sometimes the players will argue, say, hey, I should have had a chance to see that. And then sometimes it is the DM's mistake. Sometimes, DMs make mistakes, and they're like, I should have given you a check.
If the player says he jumps into the hole, he jumps into the hole. He's taking falling damage. If he wants to climb down in the hole, it's a climb check. There.
Okay, yeah.
I have had people leave the table over saying, like, why did I take damage jumping into the hole? Because it was 30 feet deep. You jumped into a hole. You take 3d6 damage.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I always find that a very hard thing to manage in D&D, because you have to condense what you're asking, because otherwise, I guess it can. That's part of the fun, is like interrogating the DM, like I look in the hole. How deep is the hole? Rather than just I go down.
That
is
half the fun of traps, man. Don't even take a rogue with you sometimes. Just try and get rid of these problems, like yourself. And that's why they give you a 10-foot pole in the player's handbook for the list of stuff you can take. Although a collapsible 10-foot pole would probably be a little easier to transport.
But this is part of my philosophy of D&D that I developed, well, it's probably a few years old now, but it's not my original philosophy, but it's a recent one, is that life should be cheap, and you should just have a backup character ready to go.
I've tried that before, okay, now here's my dungeon. Can you, work your way through the other side, find out the riddles of the dungeon? And it's just like, no, you guys just keep dying. You just keep dying. Oh my God, why do you guys keep dying? Could you please stay alive for one night? And it's like, no, you guys are at 4 hit points apiece. Why do you keep opening doors to find more monsters? You're not going to survive this. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the deaths were fairly, why did you do that? I can't call you guys morons because you're my friends, but why did you do that, you morons? Other times, it's like the death really felt like it's a tragic loss. I won't call it the heroic sacrifice, but I remember one where apparently they decided, we'll just take 2 guys in. We don't need a full party with healers or anything. Mm-hmm. And one guy wound up, oh no, I'm down at -2. I think he got bit by too many rats or something. It wasn't even a major monster to fight. And, the other guy manages to stabilize him with, the nice checks and all that. And then he's going to, take his unconscious friend out of the way. It's like, okay, let's go back to the dungeon entrance and all that.
Yeah.
And but on the way, let's open up this one last door we never opened up. Oh God, there's more rats. And so he winds up hauling, his unconscious friend, behind him like a backpack, and he winds up there was a pit. Instead of having a room, where you go from A to B to C to D, like a 4-way room, I made it was just a pit. Sort of thing. So it's like, how do you get from the doorway A to B, C, D, sort of thing.
All right.
And they had a bit of rope, but they took the rope with them just in case they need it. So here he is being chased by rats down a hallway, down to I guess I'll call it a bottomless pit rather than a room.
Okay.
Because, I guess a room kind of denotes a floor by default. And he decides to try and make a running jump with all this extra cargo on his back, and he winds up failing it, hits the side of the wall about 10 feet lower than he wanted to go for, the other passageway, and they both wind up falling to his death, and I guess, the person he's with was going to die anyways, but, it's 2 deaths for the price of 1. And it felt like a very tragic loss, because, instead of them just walking into another room and dying, it's like he's trying to get his friend to safety, but he made a foolish decision, and now he's trying to, escape the consequences. Oh, smack against the wall, and down they both go. And it's like, I like their characters, but it's like, what am I going to do? You guys know it was a 250-foot fall. That's why I tried to make certain you guys were going to be taking precautions. This is a warning. Instead of just having it be walk downstairs and things get more dangerous, I was going to have it separated by something like this, where it's like, it's a natural barrier. That's why the monsters get tougher here. If they, the weaker monsters would have gotten, destroyed by the tougher ones if they had made it, the monsters had made it across. That's why you're able to tell the difference.
Okay.
And it's just like, I can't believe either that backfired against me or you guys decided not to set up anything that would allow you easier transport back. Oh my goodness, guys. But it did feel like a very heroic tragedy that way.
Yeah.
It's like, he's trying to save his friend, and then he jumps in, smack against the wall. 2 for the price of 1 gone.
Yeah. Okay.
But
yeah.
I liked both of the characters, and I felt really bad as the Dungeon Master saying, "You're both dead." Dead, not even dying dead like you're -2. Just the falling damage you're going to take hitting the bottom here is going to... That's it for you.
Yep.
And it's like, there wasn't anything really heroic about that sacrifice there. Just tragedy. Good tragedy. Quality tragedy on that one.
Yeah.
But not sacrifice. And so this Life is Cheap does seem to hinder the heroic sacrifice from happening, because you don't always live long enough to find something that's worth sacrificing yourself for.
Yeah, well, I guess you sort of have to have one or the other. Or if life is cheap, then have a whole bunch of NPCs die or something like that.
Yes, by all means. Take some mercenaries with you. They cost just a few gold a day. You'll earn it back in the dungeons. And I will make sure they are effectively unlimited in number, so don't worry about losing 5 or 7 of them a night.
All right.
Please, consider it. Speaking of which, if you ever want to try running through that sort of dungeon, go for it. I'll run you through, but please don't open that one last door.
Oh. All right.
But yeah, if you make death cheap, then you don't always live to see something worth sacrificing. That's it. I do remember in a novel, I can't recall too much of it because it was like 4 in a series, and I never read 1 through 3. I was just picking stuff out at the library and reading it. But one person does make a sacrifice. In order to get, I guess, the magical MacGuffin working again, it has to be reforged. To be reforged, it requires sacrifice power. And the guy just, before anyone, is able to debate over, how are we going to, sacrifice someone, steps into the furnace of, the ancient, or, guys to sacrifice himself to fuel the fire to remake the artifact.
Okay, and this is, sort of near the climax of the
story. It was, the second last chapter, and then there's people I can't believe we lost him. It's like, dude did nothing for most of the book, but at least he sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
He was just like the country bumpkin sort of thing. He was like, and then you realize, dude, I'm just the country bumpkin. These guys know what's going on. At least my loss will help out, somehow, against the greater, good.
That always seems a little bit weird, though, that sort of magic, when, it's almost like a deity or something, requires sort of some sort of pathos or feeling of that sacrifice, rather than just sort of
toss another slave in the fire.
Yeah, it's not a necessity a guy fighting off hordes of orcs to let his friends get away or something like that. It's more of this deity is sort of sadistically looking down and saying, okay, I'll grant this magic if I see somebody really go through a lot of pain.
I'm sitting within arm's reach of some second edition stuff that seems to indicate that's how things very much were back in previous editions of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's, to get a magical item, you didn't just need, this much experience points, and this much gold for the stuff. It was like more intangible things and some dangerous requirements. Like I remember one of the ones they explicitly mentioned was to make like a sword of like troll slaying. You would have to dip it in acid, which would normally weaken the metal. And thus, set up a sort of thing whereby, like you can either dip it in, oh no, now you've ruined the blade, you weren't able to find a way out of this impossible, like, task properly. Because that's what it was, like, so many impossible tasks. No experience points required, just impossible things to do. Like, find, like the morning, you have to get some of the morning's rays in on your magic item to create your sun blade, right?
Sure.
What item for you would count as, as getting the morning's rays and all that sort of thing. So it's very esoteric. But one of the ones they mentioned is like, what you could wind up doing is if you're able to do things and you're good enough in the community, then the baker is able to come up with like, hey, like you guys have helped save the village like a dozen times, and you always compliment me on my wonderful goods. Have you considered, maybe lemon juice as an acid to dip it in? And thus it's like, yes, I can dip it into an acid, a nice lemony acid. For the acetic acid, and thus you do not lose the quality of the blade, and you still met the requirement of dipping it in acid, and thus your Trollbane weapon winds up working without having this horrible pitted nature to it. And so that one does encourage like being good to the NPCs, which I'm always in favor of, unless you're actually playing like an evil guy, right? So it winds up being like, okay, congratulations, you've met this impossible requirement through a trick of, of knowledge. Okay. Acetic acid is an acid. Okay, so get rid of this big barrel of hydrochloric acid we were saving up for this. Okay, there we go.
What's weird about that is wouldn't that be the first thing like a player character, especially like we're talking like university students and stuff.
This is a much more, I guess. That's the thing about the more modern player is they're always trying to find that little crazy loophole unless they're thinking quicker on it. Whereas, dipping a blade in acid, acetic acid is acid.
Yeah.
It might just bring forward a little easier. But, you know what, if you're smart enough to figure that out, congratulations, you're smart enough to figure that out. You've met one of the, 5 impossible challenges to make your magic blade.
Well, but another thing about that, though, well, I guess this is more 3rd edition thinking, but I would just roll an alchemy check. And be like, if the player rolls high enough, the character's like, oh, I know how to make acetic acid. I have some. I can buy.
Get me some lemon squeezins.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe 10 Jellos or some of the other acidic sort of fruits. And that's when we're done. We dip the sword in, and then I'll scoop out a cup and just fruit bash, have a drink.
Yeah.
But that's like one of like the 5. As I said, for one of the other things was like you have to imbue it with like the essence of the morning sun's rays if you want to get your sunblade going on there. So you'd have to figure out, like, how could you capture the rays of the morning sun to imbue it into your sword. And thus it's like basically the DM says, okay, here's your 5 impossible things, and then here's your, like, challenges. Like, you want to, create your Trollbane weapon. Well, maybe you need enough blood of a troll that you can dip your weapon in as well, just to show, like, yes, it is being bathed in its very creation in the blood of trolls.
All right.
So some people would literally try and, like, come up with a thing where, like, okay, we've captured a troll, and thus when we make it, we will, like, run it through, which would count. Others would come up with, like, okay, we've killed enough trolls, we're able to wring out the blood, into a barrel, which would meet the requirements. And then you get the sadistic player saying, we've captured a troll, cut off its arm, and with a continuing, like, rotary blade thing to continually generate enough blood to get the barrel going, which would do that and maybe necessitate an alignment change.
All right.
So as the thing is I do appreciate that concept for the magic item creation.
Right. So the idea is, it's this magic of similarities,
associated properties.
Yeah.
And thus it has to have meaning. So if you want to have your heroic sacrifice mean something, such and such, for making the magic item, you have to do it in either a painful way or lose it. Because in 3rd edition and beyond, it's just like spending experience points. It has never sat incredibly well for those thinking within the concept of the universe they're in.
Okay. So, this works as like one example of the hero's death is that the hero can die to complete a spell or end a curse or complete an item or something like that.
Keep in mind, it need not necessarily be forever. The season 1 episode of Buffy, the life of the master vampire was, apparently tied to her own. He can't die unless she dies, unless she's dead. And then someone's like, resuscitate her, and thus they were able to bring her back. She was dead for like 2 minutes, and it winds up setting up a whole lot of things going down in the future seasons. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she was dead for 2 minutes.
Okay.
And that qualifies as like the sacrifice needed. So I guess that combines the the player's ability to get around it with the sacrifice necessary.
So should we talk about resuscitation? I don't know. That might be its own.
Maybe that's the third one, bringing them back.
Resurrection,
when you're
done.
Yeah. That said, it does have a sense of cheapening a lot of the deaths. It's like, okay, I'm dead, but only until tomorrow. So I don't know. I guess that's an arguing point. So I think after a certain point, it's like, there's death and then there's dead, and there's things beyond just dying.
Yeah.
I remember the Scarred Land setting has a true ritual, like a 9th level true ritual. So it's a high-end thing where an 18th level character would have to willingly sacrifice himself permanently. No, not even true resurrection or wish brings them back. To make another person immortal. No aging, and all this, no, like living forever, but as an old fart, you get to stay eternally youthful, sort of thing. No magical compulsion can allow it. Like they have to be completely of their own free will. And who's more likely to say of their own free will, I completely sacrifice myself forevermore, so that this person may live forever? A hero or a villain? Doesn't seem very villainous.
Yeah, it seems very.
Although you could, I suppose, trick somebody into saying willingly that they're doing it.
Yeah.
But then you're not sacrificing it, you're getting them to sacrifice themselves for you.
Yeah.
So that one, that was like a ritual very much intended for the heroic sacrifice. Like there's really no other way around it unless you have that, like there's no 18th level commoners. Technically there are. There's rules for like up to level 20, although it really should have ended at 5. For some of the NPC classes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the only time, like how often are you going to see an 18th level character? The stats are, according to the 2nd edition thing, if you have a 50% attrition rate per level, and like half of all first level adventurers die, and so, like all that, an 18th level character is something like a 1 in a million shot. Which I guess really does show the cheap nature of the universe back in 2nd edition. If you have a party of 4, only one of them were expected to make it to like 3rd level. You'd have 4 first level people, you'd only wind up having 2 of them survive to 2nd level, 1 of them survives to 3rd level. That was apparently the average attrition rate considered to be regular in D&D back in the day.
Okay, I remember.
Is that considered too cheap for you for your system? Like a 50% attrition per level?
Not as well as far as the. I would expect here. I would make a distinction between sort of the world at large and the player characters themselves, because I would probably have a pretty dangerous world that the players are going to face, but not necessarily assume that everyone in the world is going to be equally challenged.
Well, that's the thing that they did in 3rd edition for determining what levels of category NPCs you encounter in a location.
Yeah.
It was like so many first levels, and then you divide that for each level above.
Right, and it's not that necessarily that half the 2nd levels all died. It's more that just people can get by just being first level for their whole life, so why would they bother?
First level wizard can still make some decent cash selling spells.
Yeah, exactly. And earning experience sort of in a D&D world is sort of roughly combat-based, but I could imagine...
well, very much more combat-based in 3rd edition than 2nd. In 2nd edition, there were some interesting things like... you didn't expend experience points to create a magic item in 2nd edition. You gained it. So after a wizard learns how to make magical items, which they got automatically at a certain level... why am I adventuring again? I'm just going to gain levels making magic potions for you suckers. Go and have some fun.
Well, yeah, that's probably a better way to live.
And that's the thing. I did some testing on that back in the day. It's like, okay, if I have a vampiric character, so age is no longer an issue. How long will it take me to get up to this level, and that? just by making magic items. Now, the downside, of course, was coming up with the impossibilities. So this is like, okay, what if I just reduce magic item creation down to the concept of, you do it in this amount of time. Mm-hmm. So taking, I guess, effectively the 3rd edition method before the 3rd edition existed and applying it into 2nd for item creation. And that's actually why they would give you experience on that, was congratulations, you've met these challenges. That's why you get experience for making the magic item. You've done 5 impossible things, and you've rose to 4 different challenges.
Okay.
Well done, hero. Have another level. Or, well, actually, no, on 2nd edition, have another 15th of a level. It was brutal.
All right. Well, anyways.
But for the heroic sacrifice, though, applies very much differently in novels as opposed to the role-playing games.
Bring that up.
So the heroic sacrifice in a novel, at what point do you think it should be done? Should it always be like a 3rd act sort of thing, like in the final end of it, or could you have a very good novel where the heroic sacrifice happens, say, dead in the middle, and thus you have like a lot of it being the repercussions of this lost character of the cause?
I imagine, a character, like a good character, like a heroic type of character, could die sort of at any point during the story, really. You can throw it right at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. But I suppose your main character that's sort of important generally to keep them because this is their story in theory. So they start at the beginning.
But couldn't it still be about the character and like what their loss represents to the world at large, even though they've saved it by sacrificing themselves heroically?
Probably, yeah, sure.
It would take a better writer than myself, I will say that, to create such a powerful story. But I think it would be a very interesting change of pace rather than hero dies at the end and saves the world, everything turns happy. Hooray.
Well, you might have like a story like Watchmen is. I think we've talked about this before. There's a superhero dies even before, like.
That's how the
beginning of the story.
That's the thing. The story starts with the death of the comedian.
Yeah.
But with the amount of flashbacks, that's not like if you were to put it in a whole linear thing without the flashbacks, it's about midway through.
Right.
His death winds up triggering the other heroes to rise to action.
Yeah.
And so in which case, as odd as it may be, the horrible person that was the comedian, his death was like a heroic sacrifice, although it was never intended to be so, that causes things to work out. As they do.
Well, maybe that's more of last week's topic with the villain's death a little bit. Watchmen is complicated that way.
She was not the best person, but I don't think he was the villain.
Okay.
Well, especially not for the story of the
Right,
Watchmen.
true.
He's the villain. It's kind of hard to have the villain be dead, although, spoiler, skip ahead about 5 minutes here, Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, the guy, the villain that everyone's chasing, winds up having been dead for decades. It's all his robots following out his programming to finish up the conclusion. Which I found to be just an amazing twist in the story. He's dead, and it's like, dude isn't even recently dead. This is like skeletonized, mummified death. It's like, dude is not recently out of it. So it's like, wow, man, I didn't see that one coming at all. And it's still a pretty good twist, even when you know what's happening.
So now,
welcome back.
Is it important? Does the hero dying, it has to mean something? Do we agree on that?
Yes, because you can't really call it a sacrifice if the hero dies for no reason.
Well,
it's just the heroic loss.
What if? Are we talking about sacrifice? What if we're just talking about the hero dying? Just died.
And then he had one too many shortbread cookies, suffered a coronary, and was deceased.
Yeah.
Harsh. It just leaves a void. It says, if you are a hero, then, you are defined by a few things. Your cause for what you're fighting for, and the people you're fighting against. I've said it before, I'm going to say it in a second, and I will say it again in the future. A hero isn't a hero if the villain would have wound up losing without the hero ever showing up. There are some cartoons I've seen specifically more oriented towards the younger viewers where the hero never even needed to be in the picture. Inspector Gadget could have had the whole thing happen without Inspector Gadget. It was just penny and brain working. Inspector Gadget could have never even shown up, and it would have progressed the same way, just with less comedic effects.
Yeah, okay.
The only thing Gadget was good for was making sure everyone see Gadget be the hero, capturing the villains at the end of the day, so that nobody knows it was secretly Penny and Brain, thus making sure no one's paying attention to them as they save the day next time. That's his only good purpose. That's the only heroic attribute to Gadget.
Well, that's not nothing.
His heart was in the right place too, but he provided an essential service in that regard. Plus, he was the legal guardian of Penny, and I suppose the owner of Brain. But other than that, he was really not the hero of the series. And thus, I suppose if you go online and look for it, you can find Inspector Gadget minus Gadget, where they'll just edit Gadget out of all the scenes and play like a 5-minute episode, whereby Penny and Brain save the day really quickly.
Is that a real thing?
I think it very well may be. If it's still up on there, it may have been taken down for legal reasons.
Okay.
But I remember hearing about it and seeing little bits of it.
Okay.
If Gadget was to suddenly have a heart attack and die, it wouldn't be like the heroic sacrifice. It's just now I guess the world has to come to grips with it actually being Penny and Brain all the time.
What if now, do you call it a sacrifice still? If the hero sort of wins the day, suffers a mortal wound, but sort of sees his victory, and then sort of says goodbye to whoever.
Yes, it's a very good one. The Dragonlance setting had the Huma Dragonbane. He managed to mortally wound the goddess as she tried to set foot on the mortal plane. And he managed, despite the fact that it cost him his life, he was dying as she was dying too, and he she can't touch the Dragonlance that's in her because it hurts. She is a dragon. She's more dragon than any dragon that ever dragged a dragon.
Okay.
And so she can't even touch the darn thing. So she's dying there, and he gets her to make a promise on her divine word she will never again try to enter into the mortal realm. And thus, with his dying energies, he takes the lance out and makes sure that there's balance preserved in the cosmos so that things don't become cosmically unbalanced, which is a very good deed indeed.
Okay.
And he gets to, still make certain that, he wins the day, and although at the cost of his own life.
Okay.
So, he could have, potentially tried to figure out some other way of stopping her if she tried to enter in that wouldn't cost him life, but dude had to make a choice right now to guarantee that he could stop her, because once she's through, maybe he can't stop it. She's in. You're not getting her out anymore.
Let me ask you this. Now, maybe you won't know this, but if you were a writer, how would you decide whether or not you needed to have the hero die at the end of the story?
Well, I'd ask myself, could I tell as good a story with the hero surviving? And if yes, I guess I'd have him to survive. Otherwise, I would go with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's. I am sick and tired of writing this character. Off he goes over the falls. Done. Done. So I guess at a certain point, it's do I really want to keep telling stories of this guy? If the hero survives, do I want to keep telling stories about hero?
I guess, you could write a sequel. Although, the sequel might be he retires.
If Harry Potter died at the end of the first book, J.K. Rowling would be out so many millions of dollars.
Yeah. Another spoiler alert, but a lot of characters died at the end of the Harry Potter
Don't tell
series.
me which ones.
I don't even know. But
well, see, that's the thing is, I'm still trying to get through the library, the last 2 movies, so that I can watch them in proper sequence. I should, after I'm done with this, actually make sure to see if I can find it and book it so I can watch it within the next week or 2. So I can avoid this for the future.
I suspect.
But let's face it. You didn't spoil it for me by saying that people died at the end, because this is a multi-book thing, and at a certain point, when things come to a head, you expect collateral damage and loss of life.
Yeah.
It's there is no way they're going to tell a story and everyone's going to wind up surviving at the end. Somebody's got to drop.
Throughout the whole series, it's always been there's peril. Oh, who's going to, the hero got through it fine. Okay, well, he escaped death that time, but...
But that's the thing. Name a series where you're watching where it doesn't, eventually, go bigger and badder and bigger and badder until it reaches a crescendo. It's someone or everyone's going to die off this. I will not be happy if everyone comes out alive. I demand blood as someone watching or reading this.
I guess part of it is that what we alluded to a little bit is that realism of this is a very dangerous situation. So logically, someone's going to get hurt because there's like lava flowing everywhere, and
although it's just not to be said that it's always demand death. I do read the not safe for work webcomic Raven's Dojo, and there's a little bit more TNA in there than I would like to recommend for anyone just out there. Yes, everyone should read it. But what the Raven, the writer, manages to really do, because that's the name of the guy, it's his dojo, and it's also like the writer of the comic. He is a master of crafting up a set of circumstances whereby it's like a Jenga of disaster, where it's just like heaping trouble on trouble upon the heroes until you say to yourself as you're reading it, there is no way anybody can survive this. There's no way they're going to be able to save the day. And then they do. And you're blown away by both their ability, their tactical resources, and their, just that everything manages to come together. It's like, no, they were playing the villains all along, and bada bing, bada boom, everything falls into place, and thus they save the day and they get out alive. And it's just like, I did not think they could do it, but he did it in such a way that I believe it. Oh my goodness. And there was a lot of TNA in the process. Hooray! And so I enjoy that. That is a very, I don't know, it's almost like a subgenre of its own. The impossible, victory, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not to say like I am the guy who says, I demand death. There's no way this is going to happen without someone dying or everyone dying. I demand the battlefield be cleansed by the end of it. No, it's because if you can set it up just right, snatching victory from the jaws of like what it seems to be utter defeat is a miraculous thing, and it just makes it so much sweeter. Because there are some times when it's a genre like, I'm really worried about Superman surviving this. How can he do it? He's only a legacy character that survived 7 decades and is, like a powerhouse franchise. Ooh, I'm really worried about him. It's like, no, you're not really expecting him to die. And if he is going to wind up dying, you can bet you heard it in the news. That's death of Superman. That was a thing. That was literally a thing in the news months leading up. They've announced Superman will die. It made the news, and people were talking about how is Superman going to die and all the legacy, and what does Superman mean to you and all that stuff. There's no way you're going to be surprised by Superman dying. It's just that much of a thing.
Yeah,
his heroic sacrifice was sadly one of the least heroic things I had seen Superman doing, because they did Elseworld stories like this is how Superman will die in this fake story. But don't worry, dear readers, this is what they actually say in Silver Age. Don't worry, dear readers, this is just a fictional story. You need not worry about Superman dying really.
Probably because they were getting letters.
Well, that's the thing is they just like, it's a good story, but Superman dies, sort of thing. So we're gonna have to make sure this is just a fantasy tale, and we're gonna have to make certain that everyone knows it from the beginning, so we don't get people saying how dare they tug at our heartstrings that way.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I found some of those stories to be a bit better death of a Superman than fighting the rage monster that was Doomsday.
All right. But here's the thing, though. Sometimes, like you sort of mentioned a little bit about disappointing heroic deaths. Sometimes people do get like, I don't know, and this is a feeling that multiple people can have, is that their hero can die. Obviously, you're sad because you read a story, you get a bit invested in it, you like the character, you want them to live.
You don't read a heroic story for a hero you don't like.
Well, yeah. But sometimes there are stories where the hero will die and it just doesn't feel satisfying to the readers. They're like, it's not heroic enough, or it wasn't enough of a sacrifice, or
that's why when Wolverine died, like permanently, air quotes, from sources at Marvel, why? Like people were saying like did it feel like heroic enough for you? Did it work? Because they didn't have Wolverine go out fighting every villain he's ever fought all at once until he finally gets overwhelmed. He saved people from suffering the same fate and traumatic experience that he suffered back in his origins.
Right.
And so it was a very personal sacrifice. He sacrificed himself to make sure that 3 complete strangers didn't suffer the same hardship that haunted him for decades. And then he made sure to kill the person that's been causing the hardship for him and for the people, and who he knew would do it again if he survived. So he made sure to take out the person that caused him the hardship, and thus he dies seeing the rising sun.
Okay.
As he gets solidified in adamantium. And it's like, okay. You know, I was actually very okay with that, seeing the stuff. It's like, all the stuff he did is just like little stuff that is playing through his mind. It's like his life flashes before his eyes as he dies. And it's like, okay, that was a very personal death. That was something I can very much buy for Wolverine, because Wolverine's always been, he's been the heart and soul of the X-Men, but he's always been a very personal person. He very much prides himself on his independence to some degree, as well as not, just spilling the beans about his entire life history for anyone willing to listen.
So now we have the hero sacrificing himself, like by throwing himself into something, or taking one last blow at the dragon or something like that. But is there an example where the bad guy just out and out kills the hero? Yeah, probably 2/3 of the way through the book, maybe a little later in the third act, we'll say, and just kills the hero, and the hero's dead, and then like either somebody, like the secondary hero, or somebody else steps up, or the villain just accidentally, by killing the hero, set off a chain of events to kill themselves or something like that. Does that happen? I don't know if that happens.
I don't recall anything off the top of my head, although I believe that was the intended plan for the Spawn plot line for the movie. Was Spawn was going to kill Jason Wynn, who had a connected to his pacemaker, like the codes for like all the bombs, in the world sort of thing to go off, and thus if Spawn killed Wynn, he would have wound up killing himself, as like a nuclear Armageddon begins, as like Hell's crazy plans come to fruition. Because Hell's Mal Bowles was the guy who decided okay, what if we make certain he knows like this is tied to your heartbeat? Why not have a bunch of nuclear launch codes tied to your heartbeat? So if you die, the missiles go off. And I don't know whoever thinks that's a good idea, but apparently Jason Wynn thinks it's a good idea. And so their intended plan was to get the sacrifice to be everyone dies sort of thing, and Hell wins.
But they take out the guy they want to take out.
Well, that's the thing, is in the end Spawn realizes how it goes and uses his horrible Hell-given powers to stop the thing from happening. Pulls the pacemaker out of the guy's heart, and thus keeps it going. Well, oh hey, no pacemaker, then I guess you're dying now. So hey, you manages to kill the guy he wants without bombing the planet. So hooray! In which case, it's a subversion of I guess what you were trying to say, where the death of because Wynn thought himself to be the hero, the death of the hero would wind up causing the death of the villain.
Yeah. And I guess, I've mentioned the hero a couple times, but yeah, sometimes we have stories with multiple, maybe a team or something like that, and one of the guys dies early on, and then but then it shifts over. The story is now about the rest of the team.
I believe there was almost something else similar set up in the second Terminator movie, where the guy's got the dead man switch as he's bleeding out at Cyberdyne Systems. And he tells the SWAT people are coming. He's like, you got to leave because he's dying, and he's holding the dead man switch. And as soon as he, I guess those for you don't know, a dead man switch is as soon as you let go of the switch, a timer goes off and I guess explosions happen.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there bleeding out because he's got a pierced lung as he's slowly dying, trying to hold on to the dead man switch as long as possible. So I suppose if you really want to try and figure out how many movies or novels or situations have been set up whereby a hero has death of the hero causes the death of a villain, a dead man switch plot is probably a very good spot to look into it, because a dead man switch need not necessarily be an actual switch on that. It can be like a dead man switch gambit.
I have another question.
Shoot the moon.
Do you remember how in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan?
Okay. Star Wars II. Star Trek II, yes.
Yeah, Star Trek II. The Wrath of Khan. And they came up with a reason why it had to be Spock who went into the, the radiation room, or the reactor room, or whatever it was.
The death chamber.
Yeah, where he dies, because
Spoiler alert. 1980?
1982, I think.
You had 3 decades to watch the darn thing. You're too late now.
They explained it as, well, he's a Vulcan, so he's slightly more resistant to the radiation, so he'll last like a couple hours longer than a human would.
Not necessarily, good, quality of life in that case for the few extra hours, but whatever.
Right, but I was thinking about that. Like, there might have been other Vulcans on the ship, and the writers could have easily been like, "Oh, we'll just."
This dude is full Vulcan. He could probably survive it entirely going in there.
Yeah, exactly. Just put another crew member, and I suppose why not have what makes the difference between putting Spock in there versus having another crewman?
Spoiler alert, in the J.J. Abrams verse, the alternate universe, same situation happens in the second one, Star Trek Into Darkness, except Kirk goes in, not Spock.
Yeah.
They bring Kirk back with some con blood juice in there.
Right, okay. But it could have been, if Kirk can do that, it could have been basically any crewman, right?
Yes.
But okay, so one thing, it has to be Kirk because he's in command and he's the only one who he's willing to order to their death.
Have you ever heard of the Kamagata Maru test?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you know it? What it actually entails?
Well, that's the one that Kirk it's
rigged.
The no-win scenario.
Exactly. They go through it in the Next Generation, or it might be Voyager. One of the later series, they actually have a person going through a Kamagata Maru test to try and advance their rank. Oh, wait, I think it actually was Voyager, where it'd be Ensign Kim trying it, in which case it's something like there's a warp core breach sort of thing imminent, and he actually, the only person that has the knowledge and the ability to fix it was Tom Paris, and thus he orders his friend into a situation he knows will cause the death, because it's the only way to avoid everyone dying.
Yeah.
And thus, the only way to pass the Kamagata Maru officially is to order your friend to go die as he saves everyone else. And thus, that's how you can tell, you're ready for the upper levels of telling people orders, like being a captain, because eventually you will have to do that in real life, hypothetically, is tell someone, you're going to die doing this.
And I guess Kirk never passed that test because he cheated, so when it came down to the time to order someone to go into the radiation room, he's like, I've got to do it, because he didn't have the whatever it was necessary. I don't want to say character because it's a horrible thing.
Well, so that's the thing,
to order someone else.
He proved himself to be a better potential captain because the test says you have to either do option A, sacrifice your friend and crewman, or B, everybody dies. And Kirk was basically like, here's my option C. It's a middle finger. And I'm going to make this happen instead. So I'm the kind of person that will find option C when I don't like A or B. And that's why you give me the best ship in the fleet, and I'm going to go rock ass across the cosmos. But not in actually those words, although I would have loved to have heard it.
I don't know if Spock would have been able to do this, but it seems to me that the logical solution is that you have to go with the lesser of evils, which is what Spock did in the first one.
The loss of one outweigh the value of one is outweighed by the value of
it made sense with Spock because of his physiology. His Vulcan, he was the only one who could do that,
and has the expertise to manage to pull it off.
Yeah, true. But if it weren't for that, I would imagine that Spock, well, maybe he couldn't have because of his human side and because he's a little bit more Kirk-like. But sort of the correct answer would have been to send in, a red shirt crewman. He's got 1 year of academy. I'm just going to show you the orders, and when you drop, please try and fall out of the way of the next red shirt who's going to come in and keep up. I mean, that's
like
sort
Kirk.
of the reality of.
As I say, Kirk would never authorize that sort of thing, and Spock would be like, dude, why are all these people dying when it could be just me?
Yeah,
the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
At least we could do it with
or the needs of the few, even
guy.
the one, as they wind up saying in the movie. In which case, it was very much the epitome of the heroic sacrifice. He was not even going to let a red shirt die if he could sacrifice himself to do that.
I guess
that's heroism there.
I have another thought on that, though, and that from a writerly perspective is that if you were looking at this as sort of a historical thing, this really happened and now you're sort of novelizing it or filmizing it, that redshirt character, he's been on the ship all along, and he's been, living his life and having his own story told about. I mean, he's obviously had to do a few critical things in his life. So basically, as a writer, I would say, oh, okay, now, because that's the guy we're going to see sacrifice, we're going to focus on him a little bit earlier, and we're going to see...
But then it's like, oh, yeah, I know this guy's going to die. Oh, look, it's Ensign Jimmy. Ensign Jimmy, you're so great. Everybody loves you. Oh, you died saving us all. Well, let's just dust our hands off and never speak of him again. Next movie, please. So, in which case, if you really want it to be the heroic sacrifice, it has to be a death of someone that matters, not Ensign Timmy, Ensign Ricky, Ensign whoever else.
What I'm saying is, you make Ensign what's-his-face matter. You could make him the nephew of, Captain Kirk to make it a little more. But then he's just somebody brought in personal. Just to die, and then you could be accused of the same thing as the women in refrigerators.
Wherein, the women in refrigerator thing came about because a person, a writer, created a character, a girlfriend for, at the time, Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner. And then she wound up getting killed by one of his villains, chopped up into pieces, and stored in his fridge. So he comes home one day, oh no, where's my girlfriend? Opens up the fridge. There she is, hacked up to pieces in the fridge.
Yeah.
But the big issue was that the only reason she was created by the writer was so that she could die and make the villain more villainous.
Okay.
She wasn't there to make and this is a romantic
But how much of her story did we see?
I'd have to double check to see how many issues she was in, but the only reason she was there was to die. The only reason you'd bring in Ensign Ricky or Ensign Timmy or Ensign Johnny would be I don't care how connected he is, if he's dating one of the higher up crew members or is a cousin or a nephew to them. His only reason to exist is to die and for you to feel sad or for the villain to seem more villainous. Which is a very contentious argument, depending on who you're killing, like a lady or a person of ethnic, subtype.
But I keep saying this about the logical solution is that it would be dumb to have Kirk sacrifice himself because he's valuable. He's obviously, and that's how the military works. You obviously. You can't have those human feelings. That's how our
military works. Apparently Starfleet works some sort of weird, crazy thing this is a very dangerous planet. Let's send down our 4 most experienced and highly ranked members of the ship and one guy in a red shirt.
I guess they have a better chance of success if they're highly experienced. But yeah.
That's the thing. That's what I liked about the Red Dwarf series. Was the heroes in the, was it season 7 and 8, I believe, wound up becoming part of what was called the Canaries. There's a dangerous planet down there. Do we send the captain? No, let's send the Canaries. If they die, well, they're dead. Congratulations, they were convicts, so I guess whatever. But if they survive, reduced, prison sentence.
Yeah.
So they have a reason to go out there into this dangerous area. It's oh boy, I'm cutting down my sentence at the risk of never coming back alive.
Yeah.
But it's a comedy program, so of course they're coming back with lives and wacky hijinks. Woo! Comedy.
But I still think if imagine this was a film, this was a redo of Star Trek II, or Star Trek Into Darkness or whatever, sort of a similar film along that lines, and you open the movie with here's Ricky getting ready, he's kissing his parents goodbye. I'm gonna go on the Enterprise, Mom and Dad, and then you see tensions mount. He's oh, I don't know if I can get along with this new captain. He seems like a real hard ass, and. Oh, there's Mr. Spock. I really admire him, and oh, there's this girl I kind of like, and on the ship, and she's in the communications.
Oh my goodness, I am so over the top for her.
And what else?
Admit it, everyone was over the top for Uhura.
And then, oh, there's a problem engineering, but I happen to solve it because I'm a super genius, and Scotty patted me on the back because I was good.
Shut up, Wesley.
Well, along that way, he climbed.
I managed to be in the right spot at the right time. And it's dude, I had the tool they needed at the right time, and there you go, Scotty. And Scotty solves the problem. But I was right there with the right tool.
Handed him the spanner right at the right time.
I had it, man. It's oh, just use the spanner. It's yes, that's right. That's all I need. There we go. Shit not blown up.
And then, like big stuff happens to the ship, but it's also like, oh, if this containment field blows, the whole ship is going to blow, but no one else knows about it except him, so he's got to fix it. And then, otherwise the whole thing would have gone.
I don't think it would make the greatest Star Trek movie, but what you're describing sounds like perhaps one of the better Star Trek fan movies.
Okay, yeah, maybe a fan.
Like this, do you remember the Animatrix?
Yeah.
It was released between the first and second Matrix movies, where it's a bunch of like little short movies, as to the world of what's going on in the Matrix universe. And I think a lot of realities, fictional realities, could benefit from a similar sort of style, where it's like, here's this world, and we've got like 7 authors, and they're going to tell us short little stories about what things are like to make a robust, wonderful world, all told up. A nice menagerie or a tapestry of storytelling points to create the world that you will love even more. And I think what you're describing would be very nice as like a short film sort of thing, like maybe a 10-15 minute film of the career of Ensign Ricky as he goes up and he enjoys this wonderful stuff there, and he saves the day, and he's in peril and he's loving it, and then he gets sucked to death by some sort of space monster.
Well, this is what I was trying to get to with the crux of it, is at the end it is Captain Kirk, like in this fictional like reality might not happen, who physically like gives the order, or is like, no, Ricky, you're going in there, and yes, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're the least valuable member of this crew, and all we need is a warm body to turn that switch in the radiation room, so basically you're it.
What if Kirk says he's the one, it's like, I could do it, and I'm not going to sacrifice any man on my ship, and then Ensign Ricky's like, no, it'll be me, you must survive, Captain. And thus he comes up, and then he suddenly rises, and the only time he's a hero is when he shoves his captain out of the way and rushes into the death chamber to flip the switch to avoid the ship blowing up.
Yeah, I like that. I like this, too. Like, we can go back a little bit. We can make him screw up a whole lot, so this is a redemption moment for him.
Well, maybe not a whole lot, because then he might wind up being like a Jar Jar sort of character.
I suppose, yeah. Or, like, he's always either, like, late for his shift, or he's like, I'm never going to help the Enterprise, or he, like, breaks something important, or he's the cause of the whole radiation leak to begin with.
Well, there was an episode whereby Kirk is apparently trying to push a person he sees a lot of his own characteristics in a little too fast for the character's proper health. Mm-hmm. And that's when things start going bad, when they encounter like an alien thing. He starts panicking, like, what are you guys even discussing? Let's blow the crap out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And in the end, he winds up getting traded to like the alien vessel, when it's like, I need to learn more about your human species. It's like, take this guy. And he's like, is he the best you have? And he goes, no, but you'll learn more about humans from it. And I'll get a better officer out of it in return when we're done. And it's like, actually, that's pretty smart for you, Kirk.
Yeah.
But what if it's a situation where Kirk is pushing, like the guy's like, I'm pushing you harder than you're used to, and you're frazzing under the thing, and then you finally rise up where Kirk says, it's got to be me, and I'll shove you off to the side. Kirk, I will do it, and thus Kirk's training finally pays off on this ensign, and he makes the heroic sacrifice.
Yeah.
He finally rises to a height that Captain Kirk would not even have. Kirk was pushing him, but even he wouldn't push him this far. But he rose, and he rose so high, he ascends beyond what Kirk could have believed he could have done.
Yeah. Well, and then Kirk would like break down and say, like, I killed him, Bones. It was me. I shouldn't have pushed him so hard.
And it's like, no, you only made him realize the hero that was within. And then they send Ensign Ricky out to the planet that winds up causing all life to come back. The end.
The tale of Ensign Ricky. Well, I think we went a little bit long. Oh,
I think you could actually make a decent number of little short stories out of this, like the tales of Ensign Ricky as he dies and comes back and goes on the horrible, crazy space adventures that apparently it happens to everyone out there.
Well, because the Enterprise has, 1,000 crew members or something like that?
I think the later ones do. I think the Kirk one had only about 300 people at most.
Okay. But that's 300 stories you could tell. Mm. And not all of them have to die, but since
they actually did a story about like that as well in the Voyager thing. To make sure that everyone's not going into too dull a routine. Everyone has like a turn that they got to go down on the planet for, and eventually Janeway realizes these people have been avoiding it. These people have always found an excuse out. So she gets
I remember this.
Yeah, episode, and I found that one to actually be pretty good, because there's the one guy's like, dude, I don't even really want to be here. This was just supposed to be my stint to get me into like the higher end of the college thing where I want to do my damn math.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it turns out like he's able to make a connection with Janeway. Like, I remember trying to solve that infinity problem myself in the day. If you can make any progress, let me know. But here's a tip: don't do this path here. I spent a year trying that one myself, and it doesn't lead out. It's like, oh, well, you just saved me a year's worth of work. Thank you, Captain. And then there's the other person who's like, she's never good enough with the math herself, and so in the end, when they're doing like the countdown, like the wave is going to hit us in 3, 2, 1. Ish. And then it winds up rocking them because she's really bad at calculating out the trajectory path and all that. I found that to be a wonderful episode. So it's like, yeah, okay, we'll take like some of the not quite the best crew and still get some good story out of them. Huh. And they all wind up doing better because of it. And then like they learn, like, oh, I should have more confidence in myself, or I should get out and not be such, like an asocial a-hole. And so they wound up like, say what you want about the Voyager series. That was a really solid episode, and I found it to be very entertaining. And you were able to remember it as soon as I mentioned it, so that must mean it hit a vibe with you as well.
Yeah, I want to watch it again now.
yeah, I'll have to Google that one up and figure out which episode that was, because I liked that one. No 7 of 9 parading around in a one-piece bodysuit, but it was still a very good episode.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I figure if I can remember that one over 7 of 9, that's got to be a good episode, right? There you go.
Yep.
No actual sacrifice needed aside from getting them out of their little, personal universes.
Yeah.
Which might be something for another day. Like, what do you have to give up to be the hero?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because these people, like, they were quite comfortable in their own little pocket of the ship being, I'm just secluded in my own little world. I'm ignore this crazy Delta Quadrant crap everywhere. Just here's my own little world. This is where I'm happy being. And thus they became better as they left their, they had to sacrifice their comfortable, world behind for this. Oh, I hate being out on this horrible mission, but I'm better because of it.
Yeah.
So we'll put a pin in that one for a topic for another day.
Indeed. Yeah. We should probably wrap up the episode.
Yeah, we've run pretty darn long on this one. Maybe we'll be able to edit some stuff down. Quickly, Josh, how can people get a hold of us for their wonderful ideas?
Send us email. thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. You can send lengthy emails with attachments and documents and whatever else.
What if they just want to send some words? Just say maybe a small paragraph.
Well, that's probably suitable for our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist. Look us up on Facebook.
And what if they have a very succinct question to ask us, like 140 characters or less?
Well, I'm glad you asked. They can tweet at me, @SpaceBoot1 on Twitter, or you can follow me or tweet at me. I will take either of those. And
what if they like to give us ranks or stars somehow?
iTunes allows you to do reviews and stars, and like 5 stars or 1 to 5 stars, however many you think we need. And Stitcher also allows reviews and thumbs up and thumbs downs.
Well, there we go.
And
so it doesn't have to be a number of stars. You can work with the binary up and down star, like thumbs.
Yeah. And also YouTube allows comments too. YouTube.com/thesimulationist.
Although, as a fair warning, if you post a comment on YouTube, you are a YouTube commenter by default, and I don't know if you want to get in with that pit of trolls.
That's true. There's also a Patreon page. Look up the Simulationist on Patreon. I haven't checked it in a while.
Help pay for the batteries we got to spend every once in a while.
It occurs to me there might be money just sitting there waiting for us. I don't even know. But
I
doubt it.
Treasure.
But that'd be awesome if there was, and it's always there for people to help us out. And of course, in real life, word of mouth, tell a friend.
Yeah, you want to mention about like heroic sacrifices. Like these guys really managed to get. You remember that one episode I keep saying was the best episode, of Star Trek Voyager, and you hate it? These guys proved my point. It rocked. It had good purpose.
That's right.
So listen to it and suck on it.
Yeah. Well, should we finish up final thoughts?
Final thought is, as I said, the hero is defined by what they do and who they're against, and it can't be heroic sacrifice if what they're against was fighting a bunch of mooks, or because they trip up in just a pit trap. Fall 20 feet, land on a spike, and dead. So I'm going to say not to the players, but to the dungeon masters out there. Please keep that in mind. They can't be heroes if they're dying for no real reason. Make sure there's a reason for them to fight and die over, rather than just I get loots of money off the corpses I kill. Because then you're a murder hobo. and there's not very much heroic about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a note out there to the DMs. Is consider how often you're putting the traps, how often you're putting the mooks. Make certain that the fights count. Make certain that the fights mean something, so that if they die, it was not just like, you got wasted off on like a trash mob. Moron.
Yeah.
How about you,
Josh? I agree with that. I guess, I mean, not every story has to be about somebody, like, not every story has to have some people's life or death, people die. But when they do, I think I think you can always frame it, like, I don't want to say that it has to be memorable or heroic every time, but I think as a writer, you can often frame a story in a different way so that it sort of, you can give it meaning, even if it seems like a meaningless death. Just the way you write a story, you can add little details here and there, but you can actually turn it into something meaningful.
But for role-playing games, so like if the person's invested a lot of time in their character, I hope if they die it means something. If it was at least a memorable death. That said, if somebody is like, okay, my fighter doesn't have a name, he's the second level, it took me 5 minutes to make him. If he dies, he dies.
Well, yeah, and as a DM, I like to try and always have a way out, or, sometimes bad luck is bad luck and they die, but generally speaking, I try to have it so the players are in charge of, like, if they make good decisions, their character is going to live. But
you make foolish decisions, and I can't help you, buddy. You are even beyond my umbrella.
Yeah. And also, like, in D&D, there's things like resurrection available.
Eventually. You just got to survive long enough to get there.
I suppose the other thing is, we've talked about death of heroes, and we talked a little bit about how the story continues, because sometimes the death of one character will spur, like, the cliche is a player will bring in this is Roger, Dodger's brother. Dodger died in falling into a pit, so this is his brother Roger, has the exact same character sheet, just erased the first letter.
I'm not Ryan, I'm Brian, your new co-host.
Exactly. But of course, you can build on that a little bit more, and you can say, well, this is his little sister, and she had a different, growing up, and she heard about stories about him, and she's a rogue instead of a fighter, but still she shares his high strength score because they were both, genetically, they think there's some half orc back in their background family somewhere.
Explain those tusks that keep popping out all over the place.
And you add little details like that, and then she, like, learns of her brother's death, and she's like, no, like, I think he was doing something good, and I'm gonna go and follow him, and so so the story continues despite that very good character who's had a lot of potential died in a pit. Well, there's still a world around them that you can draw from. And
okay, I'll say this as an evil DM tip. Conversely here, if you think your players are sloppy in that they're just we're not like a team going in, we're just 4 random killmongers going in to destroy everything, maybe killing one player can help get everyone in line. It's like, dude, people are dying here, and it's not the NPCs, it's us. We've got to start doing this right. Let's keep our nose clean, take things in by the book. Here's our attack patterns here. Here's our I'm writing this down and I'm showing it to you. This is our standard procedure for entering in a room in a dangerous area. Moving in, slowly, being cautious, watching around the corners, da-da-da. And let's watch as they start refining their technique and become like a true band of heroic adventurers that, don't just wander in and suddenly fall down a pit and die. So, as an evil DM tip, if you think the players are getting sloppy, kill one of them. To shape it up and make that death mean something, because it frightens everyone else into I guess we can't just be playing this loose and crazy. Yeah. It's serious now.
Well, when you mentioned evil DM, I thought you're going, this is another direction you can go also, but I guess this is later on in the campaign, but yeah, if a character dies, falls down a pit or something.
Use their corpse later on.
There we go.
Monster to fight, yeah.
They can become undead, and maybe
especially if the players loot the corpse and leave the corpse behind.
Yeah.
Sounds like Revenant material for me.
Revenant, or they could become like a vampire, or even you might even be able to give that character back to the player at some point and say, okay, you're evil now, but it's the same character.
It's just you with a lot of hate for your comrades.
And then, speaking of redemption, maybe at some point they could be like, sacrifice that villain, that new villain.
To the Revenant. Don't take us. Take him instead. Yeah. Shove.
Or or use a resurrection spell on him to get him back to normal or whatever it takes.
I'm still going to smack you guys and give me back my stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good fun ideas.
Yeah, okay. That's been a podcast. I've been Josh Sheldon.
I've been Ryan Kirkby. We will hear you again in 7 days.
Money.